Try saying Chateau Margaux again without butchering it like you're at some backwoods diner. Richard Whitmore's voice cut through the elegant silence like a knife. He leaned back in his chair, mimicking the server's southern accent with theatrical cruelty drawing laughter from his business associates. Maya Richardson stood frozen, the wine list trembling in her dark hands. 28 years old. Master's degree from Beijing. 5 languages. And this man had just reduced her to a punchline. Maybe stick to serving fried chicken, sweetheart, Whitmore added, adjusting his $20,000 watch. Some people are just better suited to certain roles. What happened next would destroy a billion-dollar deal and change Maya's life forever. If you want to see how this invisible waitress brought a powerful CEO to his knees, subscribe to our channel now, follow this story to the very end, and comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far Maya's story has traveled. Now let me tell you everything. The alarm screamed at 5 in the morning. Maya's hand shot out from under the thin blanket, silencing it before the second ring. She held her breath. Listened. The apartment was quiet. Good. Grandma Josephine was still asleep. She sat up in the darkness, her body already aching from yesterday's double shift. 12 hours on her feet. 12 hours of smiling at people who looked through her like glass. Her feet hit the cold floor. She moved toward the kitchen, avoiding the floorboard near the bathroom that always creaked. 3 years in this apartment had taught her every sound, every shadow, every way to move without disturbing her grandmother's fragile sleep. The kettle went on the stove. While waiting, Maya pulled out her notebook from its hiding place behind the cereal boxes. Chinese characters filled every page. Vocabulary, grammar structures, business phrases she practiced in whispers. Shangwu Tampan, she murmured. Business negotiations. Kwa Wenhua Gotong. Cross-cultural communication. 3 years since Beijing. 3 years since she had walked across that graduation stage diploma in hand, the whole world spread out before her like a promise. The kettle whistled. Maya poured water over tea leaves, watching steam rise in the dim light. You're talking to yourself again. Maya spun around. Grandma Josephine sat in her wheelchair at the kitchen doorway, a knowing smile on her weathered face. Gran, you scared me. Good, keeps you sharp. Josephine wheeled herself to the table. What were you practicing? Nothing, just reviewing. At 5 in the morning, in the dark, behind the cereal boxes, Maya set a cup of tea in front of her grandmother. It's nothing, Gran. Child, I raised your mother. I raised you. You think I don't know when someone's hiding something. Maya sat down across from her. I just like to stay sharp, in case. In case what? In case things change. Josephine wrapped her swollen fingers around the warm cup. The arthritis had gotten worse this winter. Some mornings she couldn't even grip her toothbrush. Things don't change by themselves, Maya Marie. People change them. I know, Gran. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've been waiting 3 years for something to happen, and nothing's happened. The words stung because they were true. I'm doing what I have to do, Maya said quietly. Your medication costs $400 a month. The rent is due in 2 weeks. The insurance. I know what things cost. Josephine's voice was sharp. I also know what things are worth, and you baby girl are worth more than serving dinner to people who don't know your name. Maya stared at her tea. They know my name. Do they? Or do they know your uniform? Silence stretched between them. Your mother, Josephine said slowly, was the smartest woman I ever knew. Smarter than me. Smarter than your grandfather. God rest him. When she decided to become a doctor, people laughed. A black girl from this neighborhood. They said she was dreaming too big. I know, Gran. Let me finish. They laughed and she studied. They doubted and she worked. And when she walked into that hospital for her first day as a resident, you know what she told me. Maya shook her head. She said, Mama, today they'll see my skin. Tomorrow they'll see my coat. But by next week they'll only see the doctor. And she was right. She made them see her. Josephine reached across the table and gripped Maya's hand with surprising strength. You have her brain, Maya. You have her fire. But somewhere along the way you learned to hide it. And hiding doesn't protect you, baby. It just makes you invisible. Maya's throat tightened. I can't lose this job, Gran. If I lose the insurance, I'd rather die proud than live watching my granddaughter shrink herself small enough to fit in someone else's box. Don't say that. It's the truth. Josephine released her hand. Now, what shift are you working today? Maya cleared her throat. Dinner, VIP section, some big Chinese delegation with an American company. Chinese Josephine's eyebrows rose. Well, well, maybe you'll get to use some of that fancy Beijing education after all. Maya almost laughed. Almost. I'm just serving food, Gran. Background music, present but unnoticed. Is that what your manager told you? Yes. And what do you think about that? Maya stood and began clearing the teacups. I think I need to get ready for work. Josephine watched her move around the small kitchen. You know what my mother always said? Education is a treasure no one can steal. That's right. And you've got a fortune in your head, Maya Richardson. Don't let anyone make you feel poor. Maya kissed her grandmother's forehead. I love you, Gran. I love you too, baby. Now go show them who you are. If only it were that simple. The subway was packed at 7:30. Maya stood pressed between a man in a suit who smelled like coffee and a woman arguing loudly on her phone about a wedding venue. Just another morning in New York. She closed her eyes and let her mind drift back. Beijing. The campus at Beijing Normal University. Professor Zhang's advanced linguistics seminar. The way Chinese characters had started to feel like old friends instead of puzzles. She remembered her roommate Mei Lin laughing at her American accent. You sound like a textbook, Mei Lin had said. Too perfect, too formal. Let me teach you how real people talk. 3 months later, Maya could argue with taxi drivers and haggle in markets and discuss philosophy with Mei Lin's grandfather over cups of green tea. Her Mandarin had become something alive, something that breathed. And then the phone call came. Miss Richardson, this is Mount Sinai Hospital. Your grandmother has had a stroke. Maya had been on a plane within 6 hours. The PhD acceptance letter from Columbia arrived 2 weeks later. She never opened it. The subway lurched to a stop. Maya opened her eyes. Her station. Time to become invisible again. The Crystal Room's service entrance was down a narrow alley that smelled like garbage and cigarette smoke. Maya nodded to Ramon, the security guard, who always worked the morning shift. Big night tonight, Ramon said. Patterson's been running around like his hair's on fire. I heard. Chinese delegation. 8 figures supposedly. Ramon whistled low. Don't mess it up. Thanks for the encouragement. Inside the kitchen was already chaotic. Chefs shouting, pans clanging, the sous chef cursing in French at a prep cook who had julienned carrots instead of dicing them. Maya made her way to the server station, keeping her head down. She had learned early that visibility in the kitchen meant extra tasks, extra criticism, extra opportunities for Patterson to find fault. Her locker was at the end of the row. She opened it quickly, checking to make sure her textbook was still hidden behind her spare apron. It was. Safe. Richardson. Maya's stomach dropped. Patterson's voice behind her. She closed the locker and turned. Yes, sir. Patterson was a thin man with the permanent expression of someone who had just smelled something unpleasant. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the tile as he approached. You're on tables 12 through 15 tonight. Chinese delegation with Whitmore Industries. Yes, sir, I heard. Did you hear that these are 8-figure clients? Did you hear that Richard Whitmore is personally hosting? Did you hear that this is the biggest booking we've had in 6 months? Yes, sir. Patterson stepped closer. Maya could smell his cologne, expensive and suffocating. Let me be clear, Richardson. These are sophisticated international businessmen. This is not the time for any of your quirks. My quirks, sir. The reading, the studying, whatever it is you do in your locker when you think no one's watching. His eyes narrowed. I've seen the books, Richardson. I don't know what you're playing at, but tonight is not the night for games. Tonight you are a server, nothing more. Do you understand? Maya kept her face blank. Yes, sir. You will smile. You will nod. You will not attempt to join any conversations. If they ask about wine, you come get me or Chad. You do not attempt to explain anything yourself. Understood. And Richardson. Patterson leaned in. Tone down the southern thing. These are refined people. They don't need to feel like they're ordering dinner at a truck stop. The words hit like a slap, but Maya had been slapped before. She knew how to absorb the blow without flinching. Of course, sir. Patterson studied her for a moment, looking for any sign of defiance. Finding none, he nodded curtly and walked away. Maya turned back to her locker. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the cold metal until they stopped. Background music. Present but unnoticed. She could do this. She had been doing this for 3 years. Hey, Maya. She turned. Chad Morrison stood there, golden boy smile firmly in place, blonde hair perfectly styled, country club tan, 6 months at the Crystal Room and already Patterson's favorite. Chad? Heard you got the Chinese table tonight, tough break. Why is that a tough break? Chad shrugged. You know, language barrier, cultural stuff, it can get awkward. He paused. Patterson's having me cover the Thompson party. They specifically requested me, said they appreciate my wine knowledge. Maya bit back the response that clawed at her throat. Last week, Chad had pronounced Gewürztraminer as Gewürztrammer. She had corrected him quietly, trying to help. He had reported her to Patterson for undermining his confidence. That's great, Chad. Good luck. Thanks. He turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Maya Patterson told me to tell you that if the Chinese guys ask about wine pairings, you should come find me. I'll handle the technical stuff. I'll do that. Chad walked away, still smiling. Maya watched him go, wondering how someone could be so confident while knowing so little. But that was the secret, wasn't it? Confidence wasn't about knowledge. It was about assumption. Chad assumed he belonged in any room he entered. Maya had been taught to question whether she belonged anywhere at all. 6:45. The delegation arrived. Maya watched from her position near the side station as security swept through the restaurant first. 2 men in dark suits, faces blank eyes, missing nothing. Then came the assistants with their tablets and leather portfolios speaking quietly in Mandarin. 确保所有文件都准备好了, one of them said. Make sure all documents are ready. 翻译在哪里? Where is the translator? 他在停车场5分钟后到. He's in the parking lot. 5 minutes. Maya filed away the information automatically. Old habits from Beijing. And then Chen Wei entered. He moved differently from the American executives Maya usually served. No theatrical entrance, no booming voice announcing his presence. He simply walked in and somehow the energy of the entire room shifted around him. His suit was impeccable but understated. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored. His only visible luxury was a platinum watch that caught the light as he removed his coat. Salt and pepper hair framed a face marked by intelligence rather than arrogance. Maya recognized him from the business journals she still read late at night when she couldn't sleep. Chen Wei, founder of Chen Innovation, a small Beijing startup that had become a global AI powerhouse in less than a decade. Net worth somewhere north of $12 billion. Mr. Chen and his team have arrived, the hostess announced. Patterson materialized from nowhere, practically sprinting across the restaurant. Welcome, welcome to the Crystal Room. We are so honored to have you. His voice had gone up an octave. Maya had never heard Patterson sound so obsequious. Chen nodded politely. One of his associates leaned close and whispered in Mandarin, 他们准备了我们要求的茶具吗? Did they prepare the tea set we requested? Patterson was nodding enthusiastically, clearly not understanding a single word. Richardson, he hissed as he passed her position. Get the special tea set from storage. The Chinese delegation wants their own tea. Apparently it's some kind of cultural thing. Some kind of cultural thing. 3,000 years of tea ceremony tradition reduced to some kind of cultural thing. Maya moved toward the storage room, but she had barely taken 3 steps when the front doors opened again. Richard Whitmore had arrived. Even without knowing who he was, Maya would have recognized the type. The aggressive confidence, the perfect hair, the suit that cost more than most people's cars. The way he moved through space like he owned it, because in his mind, he did. Way there you are, Whitmore's voice boomed across the restaurant as he approached the Chinese delegation with arms outstretched. No bow, no subtle greeting, just a full American assault of familiarity that made Chen's team visibly stiffen. Hope you haven't been waiting long, Whitmore continued, grasping Chen's hand and pumping it vigorously. Maya watched Chen's face, the polite smile that didn't reach his eyes, the almost imperceptible tension in his jaw. We just arrived, Mr. Whitmore, Chen replied, his English accented but precise. Richard, please. Whitmore clapped Chen on the shoulder like they were old friends. We're going to be partners after all. Maya winced internally. In Chinese business culture, that kind of physical contact from someone you just met was presumptuous at best. Whitmore had just committed his first offense and they hadn't even sat down yet. She returned with the tea set as the party was being seated. Traditional Yixing clay properly seasoned. She had prepared the water at exactly the right temperature, selected loose-leaf oolong of appropriate quality for business guests. Small gestures that most people wouldn't notice. Chen noticed. His eyes followed her movements as she arranged the tea service, and for a brief moment, something like curiosity flickered across his face. Oh, we won't be needing that. Whitmore's hand waved dismissively at the tea set Maya had just carefully arranged. Bring us your best scotch. The Macallan 25 if you have it. Chen's face remained neutral, but Maya saw the flash of disappointment in his eyes. The tea ceremony in Chinese business culture wasn't about tea. It was about respect, patience. the slow building of relationship before the transaction of business. Whitmore had just skipped the foundation and demanded they jump straight to the roof. But Mr. Chen specifically requested, Patterson began. Trust me. Whitmore winked at Chen. American deals are sealed with good whiskey, not tea. Isn't that right? Chen said nothing, but his associate leaned close and whispered, Ziga ren yidian gui ju do budong. This man has no understanding of proper conduct. Chen's response was barely audible. Nai sin woman shu yao jiga hezua. Patience. We need this partnership. Maya filed this away too. Chen needed something from Whitmore badly enough to tolerate disrespect. That was important information. Of course, Chen said aloud, his smile perfectly diplomatic. Whiskey sounds wonderful. Maya retreated to retrieve the scotch. As she passed the kitchen door, she heard Chad's voice from inside. Did you see the Chinese guys? They look so serious. I bet they don't even know what half this stuff on the menu is. Laughter from the other servers. Maya kept walking. The appetizers were served at 7:15. Tuna tartare and scallop ceviche arranged like modern art on white porcelain plates. Maya approached the table to describe the evening's specials. Y'all will find tonight's special is a pan-seared halibut, she began. Her voice was professional steady, but she could hear the slight southern cadence she could never quite eliminate. It's served with a fennel and citrus salad and a saffron-infused beurre blanc. I'll have the filet, medium rare. Whitmore hadn't let her finish, hadn't even looked at her. She was invisible just as Patterson had instructed. But Whitmore wasn't done. Don't worry if you didn't catch all that, he said to Chen, his voice carrying a smirk. Our local servers have their own unique way of speaking. Maya's hand tightened on her order pad. What was that you said? Whitmore continued, turning to look at her now, looking through her. Y'all will find. He drew out the words, exaggerating her accent with theatrical slowness. I sometimes need a translator myself. His associates laughed. That nervous, obligatory laughter that subordinates produce when the boss makes a joke. Chen's delegation sat in uncomfortable silence. One executive stared at his plate. Another suddenly found the menu fascinating, but Whitmore was enjoying himself too much to stop. Try saying Chateau Margaux again, he said, without butchering it like you're at some backwoods diner. The words landed like blows. Maya felt every eye at the table on her. The heat rose in her face, but she kept her expression blank. She had practice at this. Years of practice. I swear they'll hire anyone these days, Whitmore continued, adjusting his $20,000 watch. That Patek Philippe that cost more than Grandma Josephine's medical bills for the entire year. Probably can't even spell sommelier. More laughter from his side of the table. Maybe stick to serving fried chicken, sweetheart. Whitmore leaned back, pleased with himself. Some people are just better suited to certain roles. The silence that followed was deafening. Maya stood absolutely still. Her training screamed at her to smile, nod, disappear. Background music, present but unnoticed. Don't make waves. Don't lose the job. Think about Gran. Think about the medication. Think about the rent. Now imagine trying to explain complex technical specifications, Whitmore said, turning back to Chen. No offense to our charming waitress here, but some people are just better suited to certain roles. Don't you agree? Chen's expression was unreadable. I think, he said carefully, that many people have hidden talents. Whitmore laughed as if Chen had told a joke. That's very diplomatic of you, Wei. Very diplomatic. Maya cleared her throat softly. Will there be anything else, sir? Whitmore waved his hand without looking at her. Her. Just bring the scotch, and try not to trip over your accent on the way. She retreated to the kitchen. Her hands were shaking. Miguel found her by the service station, gripping the edge of the counter, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Hey, you okay? Maya couldn't answer. I saw what happened out there, Miguel said quietly. That guy is a piece of garbage, Maya. You don't have to take that. Yes? Her voice came out strangled. I do. No, you don't. That's harassment. That's the man who's paying for the biggest booking this restaurant has had in 6 months. Maya finally looked at Miguel. If I complain, what happens? Patterson takes his side. I lose my job. My grandmother loses her insurance. We lose the apartment. She shook her head. I've done the math, Miguel. The math doesn't work. But I'm fine. She forced her hands to release the counter. I'm going to pour his scotch and serve his dinner and smile and nod and be invisible. And at the end of the night, I'm going to go home to my grandmother and pay the rent, and that's what matters. Miguel looked at her with something like sadness. That's not living, Maya. That's surviving. Then I'll survive. She poured the scotch with steady hands, placed the glasses on her tray, walked back toward table 14. Background music. Present, but unnoticed. She could do this. But as she approached the table, Whitmore's voice reached her ears. He was leaning close to his American colleague, speaking in what he clearly thought was a confidential tone. Between us, Marcus, they'll never notice the territorial exclusivity clause buried in the appendix. By the time their legal team catches it, we'll have their core algorithm integrated into our systems. Maya's steps slowed. These people are brilliant at engineering, Whitmore continued, but hopeless at Western contract law. We'll have access to everything they've built within 6 months. And the best part, it's all technically legal. His colleague looked uncomfortable but didn't object. Maya set down the scotch glasses, her mind racing. She had spent years studying cross-cultural business communication. She knew exactly what Whitmore was describing. A contractual ambush. Hidden clauses that would essentially steal Chen's technology while appearing to offer a fair partnership. Chen's translator was struggling with basic vocabulary. His team was reviewing documents in a language they couldn't fully understand, and buried somewhere in those papers was a trap that would cost them everything. This wasn't just disrespect. This was theft. Excellent scotch, Whitmore announced loudly, raising his glass. To new partnerships and mutual benefit. Chen raised his glass politely. His team followed. None of them knew what they were toasting to. Maya stepped back to her station. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. Your mother made them see the doctor, and you need to make them see the scholar. But how? She was a server. Background music. Invisible. If she said something to Chen, he would have no reason to trust her. If she confronted Whitmore, she would be fired before dessert. If she went to Patterson, he would tell her to mind her own business and probably dock her pay for causing trouble. The math didn't work. It never worked. She watched the table through the next hour. The main courses came and went. Whitmore dominated the conversation, his translator struggling to keep pace with technical jargon that Chen's team clearly didn't fully understand. Before the next round of discussions, Whitmore announced, sliding documents across the table, I've prepared a summary of key points, just the highlights. Chen accepted the papers with a polite nod. His legal counsel frowned at the dense English text. His associate whispered urgently, 我们需要更多时间审查这些文件. We need more time to review these documents. Nothing to worry about, Whitmore said, somehow interpreting the concerned whispers as agreement. Standard procedure, industry boilerplate. Maya watched Chen's face, the uncertainty behind the diplomatic mask, the growing discomfort of his team. They knew something was wrong, but they couldn't quite see what it was. She could see it. She could see all of it. And in that moment, standing in the shadows of the restaurant where she had learned to be invisible, Maya Richardson made a decision. She picked up the wine bottle, the Bordeaux they had selected for the main course, walked toward the table with steady steps. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She positioned herself at Chen's right shoulder, began to pour. The wine flowed into his glass like liquid ruby. Beautiful. Precise. She completed the pour, and she did not move away. Xian Sheng, Qing Yuanliang wa de Darao. Sir, please excuse my interruption. The words came out in perfect Mandarin. Beijing accented. Academically precise. The voice of the scholar she had been hiding for 3 years. The table went absolutely silent. Chen Wei turned slowly to face her. His eyes widened with shock he couldn't quite conceal. Whitmore's expression transformed. Confident to confused to furious in the space of a heartbeat. 我相信黑通附录中的条款可能存在严重误解. I believe there may be a serious misunderstanding regarding the appendix clauses in the contract. Maya's voice didn't waver. Her hands didn't shake. Every word landed with surgical precision. 文件中第5 3条的独家领土权将有小组织城市创新在未经惠特莫企业书面批准的情况下进入欧洲和南美市场此外，只是产权条款延伸到联合开发之外，实际上授予对归公司所有核心算法的无限制访问权，包括您的专有人工智能 Jago. Section 5.3's exclusive territorial rights would effectively prevent Chen Innovation from entering European and South American markets without written approval from Whitmore Industries. Furthermore, the intellectual property provisions extend beyond joint development, actually granting unrestricted access to all your company's core algorithms, including your proprietary AI architecture. The silence stretched for an eternity. Patterson's face had turned the color of old milk. He stood frozen near the kitchen door, mouth opening and closing like a fish. Whitmore sputtered, "What the hell is she? I don't know what she's saying, but this is completely—" "She is saying," Chen interrupted, his voice cold and controlled, that your contract contains terms significantly different from what you have verbally described, Mr. Whitmore. His eyes never left Maya's face. Terms that would be highly unfavorable to my company. Terms that one might even call fraudulent. Whitmore's face flushed deep red. This is outrageous, Peterson. The manager rushed forward, practically tripping over himself. Sir, I am so terribly sorry. She will be removed immediately. This will never... No. Chen's single word cut through the chaos like a blade. Everyone froze. She will stay, Chen said calmly, and she will continue to translate. Whitmore leaned across the table, struggling to maintain his composure. Chen, you cannot possibly take the word of a waitress over mute. A linguistic scholar, Chen interrupted smoothly, who speaks Mandarin more fluently than anyone on my own staff. He turned to Maya and switched to Mandarin. 你在哪里学习的? Where did you study? 北京师范大学。先生，3年前我在那里完成了比较语言。学硕士学位，专注于中西方商务沟通。之前我在乔治敦大学双主修中文和国际商务。Beijing Normal University, sir. I completed my master's in comparative linguistics there 3 years ago, focusing on Chinese Western business communication. Before that, I double majored in Chinese and international business at Georgetown. Chen nodded slowly. Something like admiration flickered across his face. I prefer to continue our discussion, he said to Whitmore in English, with this young woman present, to ensure accurate communication. The power at the table had completely inverted. Whitmore's mask cracked for just a moment. Maya saw the fury beneath, the calculation, the desperate scrambling of a man who had just lost control of a situation he thought he owned. But he recovered quickly. The businessman's smile slid back into place like a shield. Of course, he said smoothly, transparency is key in any partnership. His eyes locked onto Maya's. Perhaps we could have a brief private conversation first, just to clear up any misunderstandings. The threat behind the pleasant words was unmistakable. Before Maya could respond, Chen spoke again. There is nothing to clear up, Mr. Whitmore. Either your contract says what you claim it says, or it doesn't. This young woman can help us determine which. He gestured to the empty chair beside his legal counsel. Please, sit. Maya looked at the chair, at Chen, at Whitmore's barely contained fury, at Patterson's horrified face. She thought of her grandmother, of the rent, of the medication, of all the reasons she had learned to be invisible. And then she thought of her mother walking into that hospital, making them see the doctor. Maya Richardson set down the wine bottle. She removed her apron, and she sat down at the table. The moment Maya sat down, the air at the table changed. She could feel Whitmore's eyes burning into her, but she kept her gaze steady, her hands folded on the white tablecloth like she belonged there. Because she did belong there. She had always belonged there. Well, Whitmore said, his voice tight with forced pleasantness, this is certainly unexpected. Chen Wei leaned back in his chair, studying Maya with renewed interest. Miss Richardson, is it? Yes, sir. You've been serving tables here for how long? 3 years, sir. 3 years. Chen exchanged a glance with his legal counsel. And in those 3 years, how many conversations have you overheard? How many deals discussed in languages the speakers assumed no one understood? Maya hesitated. The question was a test, and she knew it. Enough to know that what happens at these tables rarely matches what appears on paper, she said carefully, and enough to recognize when one party is being deliberately misled. Whitmore slammed his palm on the table. The silverware rattled. This is absurd. Chen, you can't seriously be entertaining this performance. Performance? Chen's voice was mild, but his eyes were sharp. An interesting choice of words, Mr. Whitmore. One might say the same about your presentation of contract terms this evening. I have no idea what she told you, but... She told me, Chen interrupted, that Section 5.3 contains territorial exclusivity clauses that were never mentioned in our preliminary discussions. She told me that the intellectual property provisions extend to pre-existing technologies, not just joint developments. And she told me that buried in Appendix C is language that would effectively make Chen Innovation a subsidiary of Whitmore Industries within 18 months. The color drained from Whitmore's face. Is any of that incorrect? Chen asked. Whitmore's colleague Marcus Moya remembered shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Those are standard protective measures, Whitmore said, recovering quickly. Industry boilerplate. Any competent legal team would include similar provisions. Then you won't mind if we review them together, Chen replied. With Miss Richardson translating, word by word. The silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds. Maya counted. Fine, Whitmore said finally. But first, I'd like a private word with our unexpected translator to ensure we're all on the same page. Chen shook his head. I don't think that will be necessary. With respect, Wei, this is a personnel matter. She's an employee of this restaurant, and her behavior tonight has been highly inappropriate. I simply want to threaten her. Chen's voice hardened. Intimidate her into silence, offer her money to walk away. Whitmore's mask slipped completely. Now wait just a... Mr. Whitmore? Chen leaned forward. I have built my company on two principles, innovation and integrity. I came to this dinner believing we shared those values. In the last 10 minutes, I have learned that we do not. You're making a mistake, Wei, a very expensive mistake. Perhaps, but I would rather lose $1 billion deal than gain a partner who considers deception a legitimate business strategy. Maya watched the exchange with her heart pounding. This was really happening. 3 years of invisibility, and now she was sitting at a table watching two billionaires argue over whether she could be trusted. Patterson appeared at the edge of her vision, hovering uncertainly. His face was a mask of barely controlled panic. Mr. Whitmore, Mr. Chen, I am so terribly sorry for this disruption. If there's anything I can do to... You can bring us more coffee, Chen said without looking at him, and clear away these dishes. Miss Richardson and I have work to do. Patterson's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Of course, he managed. Right away. He retreated toward the kitchen, shooting Maya a look that promised consequences she couldn't begin to imagine. But that was a problem for later. Right now, she had more immediate concerns. Miss Richardson. Chen pushed the contract documents toward her. Please explain to my team exactly what these provisions mean, in detail. Maya pulled the papers closer. Her eyes scanned the dense legal text, parsing meaning from deliberately obscure language. It was worse than she had initially understood. The territorial exclusivity clause, she began in Mandarin, doesn't just restrict your ability to operate in certain markets. It creates a framework where any expansion requires written approval from Whitmore Industries, and the approval process described in subsection 5.3.7 includes a 90-day review period with automatic extension clauses. Effectively, they could delay any international expansion indefinitely. Chen's legal counsel, a sharp-eyed woman named Dr. Thur, Zhang leaned forward intently. Na Jusha Chenquen Bufina. What about the intellectual property section? Maya flipped to the relevant pages. This is where it gets truly problematic. The language defines derivative works so broadly that it would include any technology that interfaces with your existing systems. Once your AI architecture is integrated with Whitmore's platforms, which is the entire point of this partnership, every improvement you make could be classified as jointly owned. Na shi huang miu di, one of Chen's executives muttered. That's absurd. It's not absurd, Maya replied. It's deliberate. The language is designed to be technically compliant with partnership law while functionally transferring ownership of your core technology. Whitmore had been listening to this exchange with growing agitation. I don't know what she's telling you, but I assure you. She's telling us the truth, Dr. Zhang said in English, her voice cold. I've reviewed these documents 3 times. I knew something was wrong, but the language was too complex for me to identify the specific mechanisms. She looked at Maya with something like respect. Where did you learn to read contracts like this? Georgetown, Maya said. International business law was a required course, and after that 3 years of serving dinners to corporate lawyers who assumed no one was listening. Despite the tension, Chen almost smiled. It seems we have underestimated the value of invisible expertise. Most people do, Maya replied. Whitmore stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor with a harsh sound that made nearby diners turn their heads. This is a farce, he announced. I came here in good faith to negotiate a partnership that would benefit both our companies. Instead, I've been ambushed by a waitress with an agenda and a client who apparently trusts strangers over business colleagues. Chen remained seated unmoved. Sit down, Richard. I will not. Sit down. The words carried an authority that came from decades of building something from nothing. Chen Wei had started with a small office in Beijing and $20,000 borrowed from his grandmother. Now he commanded a technological empire worth billions. Richard Whitmore, for all his bluster, had inherited his company from his father. The difference showed. Whitmore sat. Now, Chen said calmly, we have 2 options. Option 1, we end this dinner, I return to Beijing, and my legal team files a formal complaint with the SEC regarding predatory contract practices. The resulting investigation would be unpleasant for everyone, but particularly for you. Whitmore's jaw tightened. "You're bluffing." "I never bluff, Mr. Whitmore. Ask anyone who has done business with me." Maya watched the calculation happening behind Whitmore's eyes. The weighing of risks and rewards. The desperate search for an angle that might salvage the situation. "What's option 2? Whitmore asked finally. "Option 2 is that we start over. Clean slate. New terms negotiated in good faith with Miss Richardson present to ensure accurate communication on both sides." Chen paused. "I am still interested in a partnership, Richard. Your distribution network in North America is valuable to us, but I will not sign anything that I do not fully understand." "And if I refuse," Chen shrugged elegantly, "then we proceed to option 1, your choice." The restaurant had grown quiet around them. Other diners were pretending not to watch, but Maya could feel the weight of their attention. The staff had stopped moving, frozen in place like actors waiting for a cue. Patterson stood near the kitchen door, his face ashen. Marcus Whitmore's colleague cleared his throat nervously. "Richard, maybe we should—" "Shut up, Marcus." The words came out harsh, ugly. The mask of charm had fallen away, completely revealing something cold beneath. "Miss Richardson," Whitmore said, turning his attention to Maya for the first time since she had sat down. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir. You're the CEO of Whitmore Industries." "Do you know what that means?" "It means you run a company with significant market influence and considerable resources." "It means I can make one phone call and end your career, not just here. Anywhere." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I know people on every board, in every firm, at every restaurant that matters in this city. By tomorrow morning, you'll be unemployable. And that's the best-case scenario." Maya's throat tightened. The threat was real. She had no doubt that Whitmore had the connections to make good on it, but her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "I'd rather die proud than live watching my granddaughter shrink herself small enough to fit in someone else's box." "Mr. Whitmore," Maya said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. 3 years ago, I had a choice. I could pursue my PhD at Columbia and build the career I had worked my entire life toward, or I could come home and take care of the woman who raised me." She paused. "I chose family, and every day since then I have served people like you. People who looked at my uniform and my skin color and my accent and decided they knew everything they needed to know about me. I have smiled through insults. I have stayed silent through humiliation. I have made myself invisible because that was what survival required." Maya straightened in her chair. "But I will not be silent while you steal from a man who came to this country in good faith. I will not be invisible while you exploit a language barrier to commit fraud, and I will not shrink myself to make you more comfortable." She met Whitmore's eyes without flinching. "So make your phone calls, Mr. Whitmore. End my career. Tell everyone in this city that Maya Richardson is unhirable. But know that before you do, I will have translated every single clause in that contract for Mr. Chen's legal team, and I will testify to exactly what I heard you say to Marcus about your plans for their technology." The silence stretched. Chen Wei began to clap. Slow, deliberate applause that echoed through the hushed restaurant. "Remarkable, he said. "Truly remarkable." He turned to Whitmore. "You asked her if she knew who you were. Allow me to return the question. Do you know who she is?" Whitmore said nothing. "She is exactly the kind of person I have been looking for," Chen continued. "Someone with linguistic expertise, cultural understanding, and most importantly, integrity that cannot be purchased or threatened." He looked at Maya. "Miss Richardson, I would like to offer you a job." Maya blinked. "I'm sorry. Chen Innovation is expanding our North American operations. We need someone who can bridge the gap between our teams, someone who understands both Chinese and American business cultures. Someone who can ensure that what is said and what is meant are always the same thing." "Mr. Chen, I'm a waitress." "You are a master's-level linguist with specialized training in cross-cultural business communication who happens to be working as a waitress. There is a difference." Maya's head was spinning. An hour ago, she had been background music, present but unnoticed. Now she was being offered a corporate position by a billionaire, while another billionaire threatened to destroy her. "I need time to think," she said. "Of course, but while you're thinking, perhaps you could continue translating these documents." Chen smiled. "I believe we have several more pages to review." Whitmore pushed back from the table. "I'm not going to sit here and be lectured by whom?" Chen asked mildly. "A waitress? A woman? A black woman?" He let the questions hang in the air. I notice you had no difficulty accepting translation services from your own staff. A young man, I believe, with significantly less expertise than Miss Richardson. That's not the same thing. No, please explain the difference. Whitmore's face had gone an unhealthy shade of red. His hands were balled into fists on the tablecloth. For a moment, Maya thought he might actually leave, just walk out and abandon the entire negotiation. But Richard Whitmore hadn't built his career by walking away from money. And despite everything that had happened, there was still money on the table. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. We'll review the documents, together. The next 2 hours were brutal. Maya translated every clause, every provision, every deliberately obscure piece of legal language. She explained implications that Whitmore's team had buried in footnotes and appendices. She identified 3 additional problem areas that even she hadn't noticed in her initial review. By the time they finished, it was nearly midnight. The restaurant had emptied. The other diners had long since paid their checks and departed. Only the Crystal Room staff remained watching from a distance as history unfolded at table 14. I think, Chen said, finally setting down the last page, that we have a great deal to discuss, but not tonight. My team and I need time to process what we've learned. Whitmore nodded stiffly. The fight had gone out of him somewhere around page 37, when Maya had uncovered a clause that would have given Whitmore Industries access to Chen's proprietary research databases. Tomorrow morning, Chen continued, 9 o'clock, at your offices, we will begin fresh negotiations with terms that are acceptable to both parties. And if we can't reach agreement, Chen stood buttoning his jacket, then we part as professionals and I seek partnership elsewhere. No lawsuits, no investigations, just the recognition that sometimes business relationships are not meant to be. He extended his hand. Whitmore stared at it for a long moment. Then slowly he reached out and shook it. 9 o'clock, Whitmore said. 9 o'clock. And Mr. Whitmore, yes. I would like Miss Richardson present to ensure continued clarity in our communications. Whitmore's jaw clenched, but he nodded. As you wish. Chen turned to Maya. Will you join us tomorrow, Miss Richardson? I realize it's short notice and you likely have other commitments. Maya thought of her shift at the restaurant, of Patterson who was still watching from the kitchen doorway with murder in his eyes, of the job she would almost certainly lose the moment Chen and his team walked out the door. I'll be there, she said. Chen smiled. Excellent. I look forward to working with you. He reached into his jacket and produced a business card. My personal number. Call me if you encounter any difficulties before tomorrow. He didn't say what kind of difficulties. He didn't need to. They both knew exactly what he meant. Chen's team gathered their things and began moving toward the exit. Dr. Zhang paused beside Maya's chair. That was impressive, she said quietly in Mandarin. Most impressive. Where did you learn to read contracts like that? Georgetown mostly, but also here. Maya gestured at the restaurant around them. You'd be surprised what you can learn when people forget you're listening. Dr. Zhang smiled. I think you and I are going to work well together, Miss Richardson. Then she was gone, following her colleagues toward the door. Whitmore and his team departed moments later. Marcus hurried out without making eye contact. Whitmore himself paused at Maya's chair. This isn't over, he said softly. You've made a very powerful enemy tonight. I know, Maya replied. You don't seem concerned. Maya looked up at him. Mr. Whitmore, 3 hours ago you called me a fried chicken server who couldn't spell sommelier. Now you're threatening me personally because I proved you wrong. That tells me everything I need to know about which one of us should be concerned. Whitmore's face contorted. For a moment she thought he might actually say something truly ugly, but then he caught himself, smoothed his expression, and walked away without another word. The restaurant fell silent. Maya sat alone at table 14, surrounded by empty glasses and scattered documents and the remnants of a dinner that had changed her life. Patterson appeared at her elbow almost immediately. Richardson, my office, now. She followed him through the kitchen past Miguel, who gave her a subtle thumbs up past the other servers who watched with expressions ranging from shock to admiration to barely concealed envy. Patterson's office was cramped and cluttered. He closed the door behind them and turned to face her with barely controlled fury. Do you have any idea what you've done? Yes, sir. I prevented a fraudulent business deal. You humiliated our most important client. With respect, sir, he humiliated himself. I simply provided accurate translation. Patterson's face went purple. You are not a translator. You are a server. A server who was explicitly told to remain in the background tonight. Instead, you inserted yourself into a private business negotiation and accused a major CEO of fraud. I didn't accuse him of anything. I translated contract language that he had misrepresented. That is not your job. No. Maya agreed. My job is to pour wine and describe specials while people like Richard Whitmore mock my accent and suggest I belong in a fried chicken restaurant. My job is to be invisible. My job is to pretend I don't have a brain because it makes wealthy customers more comfortable. She took a breath. I've done that job for 3 years, Mr. Patterson. Tonight I did something else. Tonight I used my actual skills to prevent someone from being cheated. Patterson stared at her. You're fired. Maya had expected it, had known it was coming from the moment she opened her mouth in Mandarin, but hearing the words still felt like a punch to the stomach. Effective immediately, Patterson continued. Collect your things and leave. Your final paycheck will be mailed. And my insurance. Terminates at the end of the month. Standard procedure. Grandma Josephine's medication, the rent, the bills. Maya felt the familiar weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. The math she had calculated so many times. The math that never quite worked. But something had shifted tonight. Something fundamental. Mr. Patterson? She said, Chen Wei offered me a job. Patterson blinked. What? He offered me a position with Chen Innovation, International Communications Director, I believe he said. He was probably just being polite. He gave me his personal cell phone number and asked me to be at Whitmore Industries tomorrow at 9 a.m. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out the business card. Does that seem like polite small talk to you? Patterson stared at the card. His expression shifted from fury to something more complicated. Calculation, perhaps. The realization that the server he was firing might actually be walking into a position that dwarfed his own. I see, he said finally. Well, I suppose that changes things. Does it? I could be persuaded to reconsider the termination, given the circumstances. Maya almost laughed. 10 minutes ago she was unemployable. Now that a billionaire had expressed interest suddenly, she was valuable again. Thank you for the offer, Mr. Patterson, but I think I'll take my chances with the new opportunity. She turned toward the door. Richardson. She paused. You should know, Patterson said, his voice stiff with wounded pride, that I'll be giving you a negative reference if anyone calls. Maya looked back at him. Mr. Patterson, with respect, I don't think anyone is going to call. She walked out of his office through the kitchen and into the server's station. Her locker was at the end of the row. She opened it and pulled out her textbook. Advanced Business Mandarin. The pages were worn, the spine cracked from use. She had hidden it here for 3 years, studying in stolen moments between shifts. No more hiding. Miguel appeared beside her. I heard what happened. Patterson's an idiot. Patterson is protecting the restaurant. I can't blame him for that. I can. Miguel shook his head. 3 years you've worked here. Never late, never sick, never complained. And he fires you for being too smart. Maya smiled sadly. That's how it works, Miguel. The nail that sticks up gets hammered down. Not always. Sometimes it goes somewhere that needs nails. She hugged him goodbye, collected her things, walked through the kitchen one last time, accepting quiet congratulations and sympathetic murmurs from the staff she had worked beside for 3 years. At the back door, she paused. Looked back at the gleaming kitchen, the organized chaos, the life she was leaving behind. Then she pushed through the door and stepped into the cold night air. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Chen Wei. My driver will pick you up at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Send your address. Maya stared at the message. 8 hours ago, she had been background music. Now she was something else entirely. She typed her address and hit send. The subway ride home was surreal. Maya sat in a half-empty car watching the stations flash by through smudged windows. Her mind kept replaying the evening's events. Whitmore's cruelty, Chen's surprise. The contract language that had hidden theft beneath legal jargon. The look on Whitmore's face when she spoke perfect Mandarin. That look. She would remember that look for the rest of her life. The smug certainty crumbling into confusion. The confusion hardening into fury. The fury giving way to something that looked almost like fear. Richard Whitmore was not a man accustomed to fear, especially not fear caused by a waitress with a southern accent. But tonight she had made him afraid, and tomorrow she would sit across from him again, not as a server, not as background music, as a professional, an equal. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her grandmother. You're late. Everything okay? Maya smiled and typed back, Everything is very okay. Coming home now. I have something to tell you. So, good or bad? She considered the question. Lost her job, gained a new opportunity, made a powerful enemy, found an unexpected ally. Complicated, she replied, but mostly good. I'll put the tea on. The apartment was warm when Maya arrived. Grandma Josephine was waiting in the kitchen, 2 cups of tea steaming on the table. You look different, Josephine said immediately. You're standing straighter. Your eyes are brighter. She squinted. You did something tonight. Maya sat down across from her grandmother and wrapped her hands around the warm cup. I got fired. Josephine's eyes widened. What? And I got offered a new job by a Chinese billionaire at a company that does artificial intelligence. Silence. Start from the beginning, Josephine said, and don't leave anything out. Maya told her everything. The delegation arriving, Whitmore's casual cruelty, the mocking of her accent, the fried chicken comment, the contract with its hidden clauses. The moment she decided to speak, Josephine listened without interrupting. Her tea grew cold in her hands. When Maya finished, her grandmother was silent for a long moment. Say something, Gran. Josephine reached across the table and took Maya's hands. Your mother, she said, her voice thick with emotion, would be so proud of you. So proud. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I might have made a terrible mistake. Maybe, probably not, but even if you did, it was the right kind of mistake. Josephine squeezed her hands. You know what your grandfather used to say? What? He used to say that a person can spend their whole life being careful, playing it safe, coloring inside the lines, and at the end, they'll have a nice, neat picture that nobody remembers. She smiled. But the people who change the world, they're the ones who pick up the red crayon when everyone else is using blue. That's a strange metaphor, Gran. Your grandfather was a strange man, but he was right. Josephine released her hands and picked up her tea. Now, tell me about this job offer. What exactly did this Chinese billionaire say? They talked until nearly 2 in the morning. Maya explained what she knew about Chen Innovation, about the communications director position, about the meeting scheduled for 9 o'clock at Whitmore Industries. You need to sleep, Josephine finally said. Big day tomorrow. I don't think I can sleep. Try anyway. Your brain needs rest even if your heart is racing. Josephine wheeled herself toward her bedroom, then paused. Maya? Yes, Gran. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember something. You didn't just speak up for yourself tonight. You spoke up for that Chinese man who was about to be cheated. You did the right thing for the right reasons. She smiled. That's worth more than any job. Maya sat alone in the kitchen after her grandmother went to bed. The apartment was quiet. The city hummed distantly outside the window. She pulled out Chen Wei's business card and studied it. Simple design, quality paper, a phone number, and an email address. Nothing else. The man who owned this card could probably buy her entire apartment building without noticing the expense. He commanded a technological empire that employed thousands of people across multiple continents, and he wanted her to work for him. The enormity of it was almost impossible to process. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. This isn't over. Watch your back. Maya stared at the message. No signature, no identification, but she knew exactly who had sent it. Richard Whitmore. She should have been afraid. Should have felt the cold grip of anxiety that had governed so much of her life. Instead, she felt something unexpected. Something that burned in her chest like a small, fierce flame. Anger. She had spent 3 years being invisible. 3 years swallowing insults and enduring disrespect and pretending she didn't feel the cuts. 3 years waiting for permission to be herself. No more waiting. Maya typed a reply. I know exactly who you are, Mr. Whitmore, and now so does everyone else. She hit send, then she turned off her phone, walked to her bedroom, and slept better than she had in years. The alarm rang at 6:30. Maya's eyes opened immediately. No grogginess, no confusion. Just sharp, clear awareness of exactly what day this was and exactly what was about to happen. She lay still for a moment, listening to the sounds of the apartment. Her grandmother moving in the kitchen, the coffee maker gurgling, the familiar rhythm of a morning that felt anything but ordinary. Her phone sat on the nightstand. She picked it up and checked for messages. Nothing from Whitmore since last night's threat. Nothing from Chen Wei. Just silence before the storm. Maya swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood. Her body ached from yesterday's shift and last night's tension, but her mind was clear, focused. Today, everything would change, one way or another. She showered quickly and stood in front of her closet, staring at the limited options before her. Server uniforms, casual clothes for her days off, and in the far corner, wrapped in plastic, the navy suit she had worn to her last academic conference 3 years ago. She pulled it out and held it up to the light. The fabric was still good. A bit dated, perhaps, but professional. Serious. Today, she would not be invisible. "Maya, coffee's ready." "Coming, Gran?" She dressed carefully. The suit fit tighter than she remembered. 3 years of restaurant work had added muscle to her frame. But it would do. It would have to do. When she walked into the kitchen, Grandma Josephine looked up from her wheelchair and her eyes widened. "Lord have mercy," she breathed. "Look at you." "It's just a suit, Gran." "It's not just a suit. It's armor." Josephine wheeled herself closer, studying Maya's face. "You look like your mother right before a surgery, all that fire burning behind calm eyes." Maya accepted a cup of coffee and sat down at the table. "I'm nervous." "Good. Nervous means you care. Only fools walk into battle without butterflies." "This isn't a battle." "Baby girl, everything worth doing is a battle. The question is whether you're fighting for something that matters." Josephine reached across and straightened Maya's collar. "Are you—" Maya thought about Chenwei, who had come to America in good faith and nearly been robbed. About the contract clauses designed to steal years of innovation. About Whitmore's smug assumption that no one would notice, that no one would care. "Yes," she said, "I am." "Then go fight. And Maya?" "Yes, Gran." "Don't you dare apologize for being the smartest person in that room." At exactly 8 o'clock, a black sedan pulled up outside Maya's apartment building. She watched it through the window, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was real. This was actually happening. "Your ride's here," Josephine said unnecessarily. Maya kissed her grandmother's forehead. "I'll call you when it's over." "You better. I want every detail." The driver was a middle-aged man with a kind face and a slight Chinese accent. He introduced himself as David and held the car door open for her with professional courtesy. "Miss Richardson, Mr. Chen asked me to give you this." He handed her a folder. Inside was a formal offer letter on Chen Innovation letterhead. Maya's breath caught. International Communications Director. Base salary of $240,000. Health benefits starting immediately. Signing bonus of $50,000. Relocation allowance if needed. The numbers blurred before her eyes. "Mr. Chen said to tell you this is not conditional on today's meeting," David added. "The offer stands regardless of what happens with Whitmore Industries." Maya stared at the paper. $240,000. More money than she had made in the last 5 years combined. "I don't understand," she said. "He barely knows me." David smiled as he pulled the car into traffic. "Mr. Chen is very good at reading people. He says you reminded him of someone." "Who?" "Himself, 30 years ago, before anyone believed in him either." The drive to Whitmore Industries took 45 minutes through Manhattan morning traffic. Maya spent the time reviewing the contract documents she had analyzed the night before, making notes in the margins, preparing herself for whatever was coming. The Whitmore Industries building was a tower of glass and steel in the financial district, 52 floors of corporate power. Maya had walked past it dozens of times, on her way to work, never imagining she would enter through the front door. The lobby was marble and chrome designed to intimidate. Security guards in tailored suits, receptionists with perfect smiles. Everything calculated to make visitors feel small. Maya did not feel small. She walked to the reception desk with her head high and her shoulders back. "Maya Richardson, I'm here for the 9 o'clock meeting with Mr. Whitmore and the Chen Innovation Delegation." The receptionist consulted her computer, then looked up with poorly concealed surprise. "Of course, Miss Richardson. Conference room A, 51st floor. Someone will escort you up." A young man in an expensive suit appeared at her elbow. "Miss Richardson, I'm Tyler, Mr. Whitmore's assistant. Please follow me." The elevator ride was silent. Tyler kept stealing glances at her, clearly trying to reconcile her presence with whatever he had been told about last night's events. The 51st floor was hushed and carpeted. Executive territory. Tyler led her past offices where important-looking people did important-looking work, finally stopping at a set of massive wooden doors. "Conference room A," he said. "The other parties are already inside." Maya took a breath, straightened her jacket, reminded herself of who she was and why she was here. Then she pushed open the doors. The room was dominated by a long conference table surrounded by leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. At one end sat Whitmore and his team, Marcus, 2 lawyers Maya didn't recognize, and a young woman taking notes. At the other end sat Chenwei Dr. Zhang and 4 other members of the Chen Innovation Team, Every eye turned to her as she entered. "Miss Richardson?" Chen Wei stood and gestured to the empty chair beside him. "Thank you for joining us." "Thank you for having me, Mr. Chen." She walked to her seat, acutely aware of Whitmore's gaze following her every step. His expression was unreadable, but she could feel the hostility radiating from him like heat from a furnace. "Before we begin," Chen said, "I want to establish something clearly. Miss Richardson is here at my personal request. She will be providing translation and cultural consultation services for this negotiation. Any objection to her presence should be raised now." Silence. Whitmore's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "Excellent," Chen continued. "Then let's proceed. Richard, I believe you wanted to present revised terms." Whitmore cleared his throat and opened a folder in front of him. "Yes, after last night's discussion, my legal team worked through the night to address the concerns that were raised. I think you'll find these new terms are much more balanced." He slid a document across the table. Chen passed it to Maya. She scanned the pages quickly, her trained eye catching nuances that others might miss. The territorial exclusivity clause had been modified. The intellectual property language had been softened. Several of the most problematic provisions had been removed entirely. But something was wrong. "Mr. Chen," Maya said quietly in Mandarin, "may I have a moment to review this more carefully?" "Of course, take your time." She read through the document again, more slowly this time. And there it was, hidden in Section 7, buried beneath innocuous language about collaborative development frameworks. "Zeli Yu Wentai," she said softly to Chen. "There's a problem here. Shiyao Wentai." What problem? Maya pointed to the relevant paragraph and translated in a low voice. "This clause creates a technology escrow arrangement. If Chen Innovation fails to meet any of the milestone deliverables, and notice how vaguely those milestones are defined, Whitmore Industries gains immediate access to all research materials and source code as protective collateral." Chen's expression didn't change, but his eyes hardened. "It's clever," Maya continued. "They removed the obvious traps and replaced them with a time bomb. All they have to do is define the milestones in a way that's impossible to meet, and they get everything." "Is there a problem?" Whitmore asked from across the table, his voice pleasant, but his eyes sharp. Chen looked up. "Miss Richardson has identified some language in Section 7 that requires clarification." "Section 7, Whitmore frowned convincingly. "That's just standard milestone protection, industry boilerplate." "Then you won't mind explaining how collaborative deliverables will be defined and measured," Chen replied. "Well, obviously that would be determined jointly by both parties. Actually," Maya interrupted, "according to subsection 7.3, the determination of milestone compliance rests solely with Whitmore Industries. Chen Innovation has no input into that assessment." Whitmore's pleasant expression flickered. "That's a minor administrative detail. With respect, Mr. Whitmore, it's the entire foundation of the clause. This language would allow your company to unilaterally declare any deliverable inadequate and claim protective access to Chen Innovation's core technology." The room went very quiet. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The Whitmore lawyers exchanged worried glances. Tyler, the assistant, had stopped taking notes entirely. "Miss Richardson," Whitmore said, his voice dangerously soft, "you seem to have a very suspicious interpretation of straightforward contract language." "I have an accurate interpretation," Maya replied. "There's a difference." "And where exactly did a waitress learn to parse legal documents? Georgetown University? International Business Law? Professor Morrison's seminar on cross-border corporate agreements?" She met his eyes without flinching. "Where did you learn to hide theft behind legal jargon?" Whitmore's face flushed dark red. "That's enough." Chen Wei's voice cut through the tension. "Richard, I'm going to be very direct with you. In the last 12 hours, your team has presented 2 different contracts, each containing mechanisms designed to transfer ownership of my company's technology. I am beginning to wonder if partnership with Whitmore Industries is possible at all." "Chen, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable enough to offer you one more chance." Chen leaned forward. "Present terms that are genuinely fair, or this negotiation is over." The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then Whitmore smiled, a thin, cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I see how it is," he said quietly. "You found yourself a translator who knows how to twist words, and now you're using her to squeeze better terms out of this deal." "I'm using her to understand terms you've deliberately obscured. And I'm telling you that your translator is not as innocent as she appears." Whitmore pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. "I did some research last night. Maya Richardson graduated Georgetown with honors, master's degree from Beijing Normal University, applied to the PhD program at Columbia 3 years ago, was accepted. He paused dramatically, but she never enrolled. And do you know why? Because her grandmother, the same grandmother whose medical bills she claims to be paying, filed for bankruptcy that same year. Interesting timing, don't you think? Maya felt the blood drain from her face. What exactly are you implying? Chen asked. I'm implying that Miss Richardson has financial motivation to insert herself into lucrative situations. I'm implying that her heroic translation last night might have been calculated to create exactly this opportunity. Whitmore spread his hands. I'm not saying she's working against you, Wei. I'm just raising questions about her credibility. My grandmother had a stroke, Maya said, her voice tight. The medical bills bankrupted us. I gave up my academic career to take care of her. Those are facts. Facts can be arranged to tell different stories. Are you calling me a liar? I'm suggesting that your sudden appearance at our negotiation might not be entirely coincidental. Whitmore turned to Chen. Think about it, Wei. What are the odds that a restaurant happens to assign a Mandarin-speaking linguistics expert to serve your table on the exact night you're reviewing a complex contract? It's almost as if someone knew we'd be there. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Maya's mind raced. She could see how it might look, the convenient timing, the perfect language skills, the dramatic intervention that had positioned her exactly where she now sat. But she knew the truth. She had been assigned to that table by Patterson. She had overheard Whitmore's fraud by chance. Everything that followed had been spontaneous, unplanned, and driven by anger and conscience rather than calculation. Mr. Chen, she said, I have no way to prove that last night wasn't staged. You don't know me. You have no reason to trust me. All I can tell you is the truth. I am a waitress who happened to speak Mandarin, who happened to overhear something wrong, and who made a choice to speak up instead of staying silent. She paused. If that makes you doubt me, I understand. I can leave right now and you can continue this negotiation without me. But I would ask you to consider one thing if I were working with Mr. Whitmore. Why would I expose his fraudulent contract terms? Why would I make him look like a criminal in front of you? What possible benefit would that serve? Chen was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to Whitmore. Richard, in 30 years of business, I have learned to judge people by their actions, not their circumstances. Last night, Miss Richardson identified deception in a contract that would have cost my company billions of dollars. Whether her presence was coincidental or providential, the result is the same. He stood. I am going to take a 30-minute recess. When I return, I expect to see a contract that contains no hidden provisions, no time bombs, no mechanisms for unilateral control. If such a contract cannot be produced, this partnership ends here. Whitmore opened his mouth to protest, but Chen was already walking toward the door. Miss Richardson, would you join me? Maya rose from her chair and followed him out of the conference room, leaving Whitmore and his team in stunned silence behind her. The hallway outside was empty. Chen walked to a window overlooking the city and stood there for a moment, his hands clasped behind his back. Mr. Chen, I want you to know. You don't need to explain yourself to me, Miss Richardson. But what he said was a desperate attempt to discredit you. Chen turned to face her. I've dealt with men like Richard Whitmore my entire career. They believe that everyone is motivated by self-interest because they cannot imagine any other motivation. The idea that someone might act out of simple integrity is incomprehensible to them. Maya felt tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. Your actions last night spoke clearly enough. Chen reached into his jacket and produced an envelope. I brought this in case you hadn't received the formal offer yet. Maya took the envelope. It was the same offer David had shown her in the car. The job is yours if you want it, Chen said, regardless of what happens in that room, regardless of whether we ever do business with Whitmore Industries. Why, because you remind me of someone I used to know, a young man who worked as a janitor at a technology company in Beijing. He spoke English fluently, had a degree in computer science, but no one would hire him because his family had the wrong political connections. So he pushed a mop and emptied trash cans and listened to conversations that executives assumed he couldn't understand. Chen smiled slightly. One day, he overheard plans to steal technology from a competitor. He could have stayed silent. It wasn't his business. But he spoke up, and in doing so, he destroyed his career as a janitor and began his career as an entrepreneur. That was you. That was me. 30 years ago, a different country, different circumstances, but the same choice. He gestured at the window at the city sprawling beneath them. Every person you see out there is facing that choice in some form. Most of them choose silence. You chose differently. A door opened behind them. Tyler appeared looking nervous. Mr. Chen, Mr. Whitmore is ready to resume. Chen nodded. Thank you. We'll be there in a moment. Tyler retreated. Miss Richardson, Chen said, whatever happens next, I want you to know something. Whether you accept my offer or not, whether this deal succeeds or fails, you have already changed things. Not just for me, but for yourself. You stepped out of the shadows last night. There is no going back into them. Maya thought of her grandmother's words. The nail that sticks up gets hammered down, but sometimes it goes somewhere that needs nails. I'm ready, she said. They walked back into the conference room together. The atmosphere had shifted. Whitmore's lawyers were huddled in whispered conference. Marcus was typing furiously on his laptop. Whitmore himself sat rigidly in his chair, his face a mask of controlled fury. But there was something else there, too. Something that looked almost like defeat. We have revised terms, Whitmore said without preamble. He pushed a document across the table. No territorial exclusivity. Intellectual property remains with the originating company, no escrow provisions, clean partnership agreement. Maya took the document and read through it carefully, page by page, clause by clause. It was clean. She looked up at Chen and nodded. This is acceptable, Chen said, but I have one additional condition. Of course you do. I want Miss Richardson included in the agreement as a designated cultural liaison. She will be present at all major negotiations between our companies and will have access to all documentation in both English and Chinese versions. Whitmore's expression curdled. That's highly irregular. So was hiding theft in a partnership contract. My condition stands. The silence stretched. Maya watched Whitmore's face as he calculated. The deal was worth hundreds of millions. The technology partnership would open doors that money alone couldn't buy. All he had to do was accept a condition that wounded his pride. Fine, Whitmore said finally. She can be your liaison. Excellent. Chen extended his hand across the table. Then I believe we have a deal. Whitmore hesitated for just a moment. Then he reached out and shook Chen's hand. We have a deal, he said, but his eyes when they met Maya's promised something very different. The signing ceremony took another 2 hours. Lawyers from both sides reviewed every page. Translators verified language. Documents were initialed, signed, witnessed, and notarized. Through it all, Maya sat at Chen Wei's right hand, translating nuances, clarifying terms, ensuring that every word meant exactly what it appeared to mean. When the last signature was complete, Chen turned to her. Miss Richardson, I believe you have a decision to make. He placed the job offer on the table in front of her. Maya looked at the paper, at the numbers, at the future it represented. Then she looked at Whitmore, who was watching with barely concealed hostility, at Dr. Zhang, who gave her an encouraging nod, at Chen Wei, who had seen something in her that she had almost forgotten existed. Mr. Chen, Maya said, I would be honored to accept your offer. Chen smiled. Welcome to Chen Innovation, Miss Richardson. They shook hands across the table, and just like that, Maya Richardson was no longer a waitress. She was no longer invisible. She was something new. The aftermath of the signing was a blur of congratulations and logistics. Dr. Zhang explained the onboarding process. HR documents were produced for Maya's signature. A start date was set for the following Monday. Through it all, Whitmore and his team packed up their materials and prepared to leave without another word. But as the room emptied, Whitmore paused at the door. Miss Richardson, Maya turned. Congratulations on your new position. His voice was pleasant. His eyes were ice. I'm sure it will be very educational for everyone involved. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. One piece of advice, if I may. Of course. In my experience, people who rise too quickly often fall even faster. He smiled that thin, cold smile. Enjoy your moment. They never last as long as you think. He walked out without waiting for a response. Chen appeared at Maya's elbow. Don't let him unsettle you. Men like Richard Whitmore are most dangerous when they appear to be gracious. I know, but he's right about one thing. What's that? Maya looked around the conference room at the scattered documents, the empty coffee cups, the view of the city that now somehow felt more accessible than it had this morning. This is a moment, and moments don't last. She met Chen's eyes. I'll have to work every day to prove I deserve to be here. Chen nodded approvingly. That attitude is exactly why I hired you. They left the building together, or Chen's team surrounding them like a protective formation. David was waiting with the car. Where to, Miss Richardson? Maya thought for a moment. Brooklyn, she said. I need to tell my grandmother that her granddaughter is no longer a waitress. The drive back to Brooklyn felt like traveling between worlds. The Manhattan skyline receded in the rearview mirror. The familiar streets of her neighborhood came into view. Everything looked the same as it had this morning, but nothing felt the same. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw the news. Whitmore deal with Chen Innovation signed. Sources say a former waitress played key role in negotiations. Interesting. Then another text from the same number. This is James Morrison. You were in my contract seminar at Georgetown. If you're ever interested in discussing career opportunities, my firm would love to talk. Then another. Maya, this is Dr. Patricia Wong from Columbia. We still have your PhD application on file. Given recent developments, we'd like to discuss whether you might reconsider. The texts kept coming. People she hadn't heard from in years. Former classmates, professors, professional contacts who had forgotten she existed. Amazing, she thought, how quickly the world changes when you stop being invisible. The car pulled up outside her apartment building. Maya thanked David and walked toward the entrance. Grandma Josephine was waiting just inside the door. I saw it on the news, she said, her voice trembling. Baby, I saw it on the news. Maya knelt beside her grandmother's wheelchair. Saw what you, in the background of a photo from the signing ceremony, standing right next to that Chinese billionaire like you belonged there. I did belong there, Gran. Josephine's eyes filled with tears. I know you did, baby. I always knew. They held each other in the lobby of their modest apartment building, two women who had survived so much together finally seeing the beginning of something new. I got the job, Maya said. The one Mr. Chen offered. I figured. What's the pay? $240,000 a year, plus benefits. Josephine pulled back and stared at her. Say that again. $240,000, Gran, and a $50,000 signing bonus. Josephine was silent for a long moment. Then she laughed. A deep, full laugh that Maya hadn't heard in years. Lord have mercy, she said. Your mother is up in heaven right now doing a victory dance. You think so? I know so, baby. I know so. They went upstairs together. Maya made tea while her grandmother sat at the kitchen table, still wiping tears from her eye. So what happens now? Josephine asked. I start Monday. They're setting up an office for me in the New York branch. I'll be working on communications between the American and Chinese teams. And what about Mr. Whitmore, the man who threatened you? Maya's expression darkened. He's still out there, still angry, but he can't touch me now, not without touching Chen Innovation. Don't underestimate men like that, baby. They don't forgive and they don't forget. I know, Gran. I'll be careful. Josephine reached across the table and took Maya's hand. I'm proud of you, more proud than I've ever been of anything in my life, but I want you to promise me something. What? Promise me you won't forget who you are. You're about to enter a world of powerful people and expensive suits and complicated games. Don't let it change you. Don't let it make you hard. Maya squeezed her grandmother's hand. I won't. And promise me one more thing. Anything. Promise me you'll keep studying. That textbook in your locker, keep filling it with new characters. Keep learning, because education is still a treasure, baby, even when you're making $240,000 a year. Maya smiled. I promise. That night, after her grandmother had gone to bed, Maya sat alone in the kitchen with her worn copy of Advanced Business Mandarin. She opened it to a fresh page and began writing. New vocabulary for a new life. Chiye Janlu Corporate Strategy. Kwawen Hualing Daoli Cross-Cultural Leadership. Yangbu Fengqi. Never give up. She wrote until her hand cramped, until the first light of dawn crept through the window, until she heard her grandmother stirring in the next room. A new day was beginning, and for the first time in 3 years, Maya Richardson couldn't wait to see what it would bring. Monday came faster than Maya expected. She stood outside the Chen Innovation Building at 8:15 in the morning, her new identification badge clutched in her hand. The weight of it felt strange, significant, a small piece of plastic that represented everything she had worked toward and everything she had almost given up. You going to stand out here all day, or are you coming inside? Maya turned. Dr. Zhang stood behind her, coffee in hand, a slight smile on her face. Just taking a moment, Maya admitted. First day nerves. Something like that? Dr. Zhang nodded understandingly. I remember my first day at Chen Innovation. I stood outside for 20 minutes trying to convince myself I belonged. Want to know what finally got me through the door? What? The realization that imposter syndrome is just fear wearing a fancy disguise. You earned this, Maya. Now come earn it again. They walked into the building together. The Chen Innovation offices occupied the top 3 floors of a glass tower in Midtown Manhattan. Maya's new office was on the 42nd floor, a corner space with windows on 2 sides and a desk that was bigger than her entire kitchen table at home. "This is mine," she asked, standing in the doorway. "All yours," Dr. Zhang confirmed. Mr. Chen insisted. He said you needed room to spread out. Maya walked slowly around the space, running her fingers along the edge of the desk. Real wood. Expensive. The kind of furniture she had only ever dusted when working as a temp cleaner during college summers. "There's a staff meeting at 9, Dr. Zhang continued. "Mr. Chen wants to introduce you to the team. After that, we have a working lunch with the legal department to review ongoing projects. Then at 3, you have a call with the Beijing office to establish initial contacts." Maya's head spun. That's a lot for a first day. "That's a slow day at Chen Innovation. You'll adjust." Dr. Zhang left her alone to settle in. Maya sat down in her new chair and stared at the empty desk, the blank computer screen, the phone that would soon start ringing with calls she was expected to answer competently. Her phone buzzed. A text from her grandmother. "First day, remember you belong there, love you." Maya smiled and typed back, "Love you too, Gran. Trying to remember?" At 9 o'clock sharp, Maya walked into the main conference room for the staff meeting. 30 faces turned to look at her, some curious, some skeptical, a few openly hostile. Chen Wei stood at the head of the table. "Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce Maya Richardson, our new International Communications Director. Some of you may have seen the news coverage from last week. Maya was instrumental in identifying significant issues with our partnership agreement with Whitmore Industries." Murmurs rippled through the room. "She will be working directly with both our New York and Beijing teams to ensure clear communication across all major initiatives. I expect you to give her your full cooperation." Chen paused. "Maya, would you like to say a few words?" Maya hadn't prepared anything, but she had spent 3 years learning to think on her feet. "Thank you, Mr. Chen." She looked around the room, meeting eyes wherever she could. "I know my background is unusual. A week ago, I was serving dinner at a restaurant. Some of you are probably wondering if I belong here." She paused. "Honestly, I'm wondering the same thing. But here's what I know: I have skills that this company needs. I speak Mandarin fluently. I understand the cultural nuances that can make or break international partnerships, and I'm not afraid to speak up when something is wrong." She took a breath. "I'm not here to take anyone's job or step on anyone's toes. I'm here to build bridges between languages, between cultures, between the people in this room and the people in our Beijing office who are working toward the same goals but don't always have the words to say so." She looked at Chen. "That's all I have. I'm looking forward to learning from all of you." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Then Dr. Zhang started clapping. A few others joined in. Not enthusiastic applause, but not hostile either. It was a start. The working lunch with the legal department was more challenging. Maya sat across from 3 lawyers who clearly resented her presence. The lead attorney, a severe woman named Victoria Chen, no relation to the CEO, made no effort to hide her skepticism. "I've reviewed your background," Victoria said, flipping through a folder. "Master's in linguistics, no legal training, no corporate experience, and yet you identified contract issues that my team missed." "I didn't mean to step on anyone's toes," Maya said carefully. "You didn't step on toes. You stepped on careers." Victoria's voice was cold. "2 of my junior associates spent 3 weeks reviewing that Whitmore contract. They signed off on it. Now they're being questioned about their competence." "I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention." "Your intention doesn't matter. The result does." Victoria closed the folder. "Let me be very clear, Miss Richardson. I don't care how you impressed Mr. Chen. In this department, you will defer to trained legal professionals. If you see something you think is problematic, you bring it to me. You do not go directly to the client." Maya felt her temper rising, but kept it in check. "With respect, Ms. Chen, if I had brought my concerns to your department first, the Whitmore contract would have been signed before anyone listened to me." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Is that an accusation?" "It's an observation. Your team reviewed that contract and found nothing wrong. I read it once and found multiple mechanisms for fraud. Either your team isn't as thorough as it should be, or they didn't want to see what was there." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Careful," Victoria said softly. "You're new here. You don't understand how things work." "I understand exactly how things work. That's the problem." Maya stood. "I didn't come here to make enemies, Ms. Chen, but I also didn't come here to stay silent when I see something wrong. That's why Mr. Chen hired me." She walked out of the conference room without looking back. Her phone rang before she reached her office. Chen Wei's number. "I heard about your meeting with legal," he said without preamble. "News travels fast." "Victoria called me the moment you left the room. She wants you fired." Maya's stomach dropped. "And what do you think?" "I think you could have been more diplomatic. I also think you were absolutely right." A pause. "Victoria and her team missed those contract issues because they didn't want to find them. Whitmore Industries is a major client. Raising concerns would have been inconvenient. So they looked the other way?" "They told themselves there was nothing to see. There's a difference, but the result is the same." Chen's voice hardened. "I've spoken with Victoria. She understands that you report directly to me, not to her department. But Maya, you need to learn to deliver hard truths without making permanent enemies." "I'll work on it." "Good. Now get back to work. You have a call with Beijing in 2 hours." The call with Beijing went better than expected. Maya spent 90 minutes speaking Mandarin with her counterparts in Chen Innovation's headquarters, establishing relationships and discussing communication protocols. By the end, she had scheduled 3 follow-up calls and received 2 invitations to visit Beijing for face-to-face meetings. She was just wrapping up when her office door opened. A young man stood in the doorway. Early 20s, well-dressed, with the polished look of someone who had grown up with money. "Maya Richardson." "Yes." "I'm Jason Whitmore, Richard Whitmore's son." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I was hoping we could talk." Maya's guard went up immediately. "About what?" "About my father, about what happened last week, about whether there might be a way to repair the damage before it becomes permanent." He walked into her office without being invited and sat down across from her desk. "I'm not sure what there is to discuss," Maya said carefully. "There's always something to discuss. That's what my father taught me." Jason leaned forward. "Look, I know what happened at that dinner. I know my father said some things that were inappropriate. He has a temper. He says things he doesn't mean. He called me a fried chicken server." Jason winced. "I know, and I'm sorry. That was wrong. But you have to understand, my father built Whitmore Industries from nothing. He's protective of what he's created. When he felt threatened, he lashed out. He was trying to steal Chen Innovation's technology. He was negotiating aggressively. There's a difference." Maya stared at him. "You really believe that?" "I believe my father is a brilliant businessman who sometimes uses tactics that aren't pretty, but fraud. That's a strong word." "It's an accurate word." Jason's pleasant expression flickered. "Miss Richardson, I came here hoping to find common ground. My father is willing to apologize publicly if that's what it takes. He's willing to renegotiate terms, make concessions, whatever is necessary to move forward." "Why?" "Because the partnership with Chen Innovation is worth billions of dollars. Because walking away from that deal hurts both companies. And because..." He paused. "Because my father respects what you did." Maya laughed. Actually laughed out loud. "Respects it. He threatened to destroy my career." That was the heat of the moment. He's had time to reflect. Jason pulled out his phone. "He asked me to show you this." He played a video message. Richard Whitmore's face appeared on the screen, looking older and more tired than he had at the dinner. "Miss Richardson, I owe you an apology. My behavior last week was inexcusable. I said things that were racist, demeaning, and wrong. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me, and I hope we can find a way to work together professionally in the future." The video ended. Maya sat in silence for a moment. "That's quite a performance." "Huh?" she said finally. "It's not a performance. It's genuine. Your father is worth $4 billion. He didn't get there by making genuine apologies. He got there by saying whatever was necessary to close deals." Maya leaned back in her chair. "What does he really want, Jason?" Jason's smile faded. "The contract you negotiated includes a clause making you a designated liaison for all major communications between our companies. My father wants that clause removed." "Why?" "Because it gives you too much power, too much visibility into our operations." Jason's voice dropped. "And because you've embarrassed him in front of the entire business community. He can't do anything to you directly without looking petty, but he can try to limit your influence." Finally, some honesty. "Tell your father no, how?" Maya said. "That's your final answer." "It's my only answer. The clause stays." Jason stood slowly. The pleasant facade was completely gone now. "My father warned me you'd refuse. He also told me to deliver a message if you did." What message? That this isn't over, that he's a patient man, and that sooner or later everyone makes a mistake. Jason walked to the door. Enjoy your new office, Miss Richardson. I hope it lasts. He left without closing the door behind him. Maya sat at her desk, heart-pounding, mind-racing. She had known Whitmore wouldn't let this go, but sending his son to negotiate was a new level of strategic thinking. Jason had seemed reasonable at first, almost sympathetic. It would have been easy to believe his father had truly changed. But Maya had grown up poor in a world that constantly tried to convince her she should accept less than she deserved. She knew manipulation when she saw it. Her phone buzzed, Chen Wei again. Security tells me Jason Whitmore just left your office. He did. What did he want? To remove me from the liaison clause. When I refused, he delivered a threat from his father. Silence on the other end. Come to my office, Chen said finally. We need to talk. Chen Wei's office was on the 44th floor at the very top of the building. The space was surprisingly modest, a large desk, some comfortable chairs, and walls lined with photographs of Chen Innovation's history. Chen was standing at the window when Maya entered. I've made a decision, he said without turning around. About what? About Richard Whitmore. He turned to face her. The partnership agreement we signed is legally binding, but there are provisions that allow either party to exit if certain conditions are met. You're ending the partnership. I'm considering it. Chen sat down heavily in his chair. What Jason told you is true. His father is patient and strategic. If we continue this partnership, Whitmore will spend every day looking for ways to undermine you, to undermine me, to reclaim the advantage he lost. Is the partnership worth saving? Financially, yes. Their distribution network would accelerate our North American expansion by years. Chen paused. But there's more to business than money. There's trust, integrity, the ability to sleep at night knowing you haven't compromised what you believe in. He looked at Maya directly. A week ago, you taught me something I had forgotten. You reminded me that some principles are worth more than profit. Now I have to decide whether I'm willing to live by that lesson or just admire it from a distance. Maya sat down across from him. What would you lose if you walked away? Short term, about $300 million in projected revenue over the next 5 years. Long-term access to a distribution infrastructure that took Whitmore Industries decades to build. And what would you gain? Chen smiled slightly. Peace of mind. The knowledge that I'm not in business with a man who thinks fraud is just aggressive negotiation. He looked at her, and the ability to look you in the eye and say, I stood by my principles. You don't owe me anything, Mr. Chen. I owe you honesty, which is why I'm telling you that whatever I decide will affect your position here. If we maintain the partnership, Whitmore will make your job difficult at every opportunity. If we end it, I'll face pressure from my board to justify why I walked away from $300 million for a woman I've known less than a week. Maya absorbed this, despaired this. What do you want to do? She asked. I want to end the partnership, but I need to know you understand the consequences. Your liaison role would be meaningless without Whitmore Industries. You'd still have a job, but it would be different. Smaller, less visible. Would you still need someone who speaks Mandarin and understands cross-cultural communication? Yes? Then I'd still have valuable skills. Maya straightened in her chair. Mr. Chen, I didn't take this job because I wanted power or visibility. I took it because you saw something in me that I had almost forgotten existed. Whatever you decide about Whitmore, I'll support it, and I'll find ways to be useful. Chen studied her face for a long moment. You know, he said finally. When I started this company, I had nothing. No money, no connections, no reputation, just ideas and determination. People told me constantly that I should compromise, that I should be practical, that business was about deals, not principles. He stood and walked back to the window. I spent 30 years proving them wrong, but somewhere along the way, I forgot why it mattered. I got comfortable. I started making decisions based on spreadsheets instead of values. He turned back to her. Then you walked into that restaurant and reminded me what courage looks like. I'm not courageous, I was just angry. Anger is fuel, courage is what you do with it. Chen smiled. I'm going to end the partnership with Whitmore Industries. Tonight, if possible, my board will be furious, the press will speculate, Richard Whitmore will probably try to destroy me, and I'll sleep better than I have in years. He extended his hand. Thank you, Maya, for reminding an old man what he believes in. Maya shook his hand. Thank you for seeing me, she said, when no one else did. The news broke the next morning. Chen Innovation terminates partnership with Whitmore Industries, citing irreconcilable differences. The business press exploded with speculation. Some analysts praised Chen's principled stance. Others called it financial suicide. Social media debated whether the decision was brave or foolish. Maya watched the coverage from her office, reading article after article that mentioned her name. The waitress who brought down a billion-dollar deal, the linguistic scholar who exposed corporate fraud, the woman who went from serving dinner to shaping international business. Her phone rang constantly. Reporters, old colleagues, people she hadn't heard from in years. She let most of the calls go to voicemail, but one call she answered. "Maya, it's Dr. Patricia Wong, from Columbia." Maya's heart skipped. "Dr. Wong, I got your text, but I haven't had time to—" "I understand. You've been busy changing the world." A warm laugh. "Maya, I'll be direct. We still have your PhD application on file. Given everything that's happened, the admissions committee has voted unanimously to extend a new offer, full scholarship, research fellowship, stipend for living expenses." Maya's throat tightened. The dream she had given up 3 years ago suddenly possible again. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it. The offer stands for 60 days. A pause. "Maya, you have an extraordinary gift. What you did last week proved that. But academia could give you something the corporate world can't, the time and space to develop that gift into something that changes how we understand communication itself. I need to talk to my grandmother." "Of course, take all the time you need." Dr. Wong's voice softened. "And Maya, whatever you decide, I'm proud of you. We all are." The call ended. Maya sat at her desk staring at nothing. A week ago, she had been invisible. Now she had 2 paths forward, 2 entirely different futures. Each one representing something she had dreamed about, sacrificed for, believed in. Her phone buzzed, a text from her grandmother. "Saw the news? Come home, I made dinner, we need to talk." Maya smiled. Some decisions couldn't be made alone. She grabbed her coat and headed for the door. The apartment smelled like Grandma Josephine's famous fried chicken when Maya walked in. The real kind made with love and butter and decades of practice. "Sit down," Josephine commanded from her wheelchair. "Eat first, talk after." They ate in comfortable silence. Maya hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first bite hit her tongue. She cleared 2 plates before finally pushing back from the table. "All right," Josephine said. "Tell me everything." Maya told her about the meeting with Victoria Chen, about Jason Whitmore's visit, about Chen Wei's decision to end the partnership, about Dr. Wong's call. Josephine listened without interrupting, her sharp eyes missing nothing. When Maya finished, her grandmother was quiet for a long moment. "So," Josephine finally said, "you have 2 paths. The corporate path pays well and lets you use your skills immediately. The academic path pays less but gives you time to become something more than what you already are." "Yes." "And you want to know which one to choose?" "I want to know which one is right." Josephine laughed. "Baby girl, if I knew how to choose between 2 good options, I would have made a lot fewer mistakes in my life." "Gran, listen to me." Josephine reached across the table and took Maya's hands. "When your mother was your age, she faced a similar choice. She could have gone into research, worked in a lab, made important discoveries that might have changed medicine forever. Or she could have become a practicing physician, helping patients one at a time, making a smaller but more immediate difference. She chose patience. She chose patience, and she never regretted it, not once. But you know what she told me near the end?" Maya shook her head. "She said the choice wasn't between research and patience. It was between who she wanted to become and who she already was." Josephine squeezed Maya's hands. "Your mother was a healer at her core. She needed to touch people to see the immediate impact of her work. That's who she was." "And who am I?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Josephine smiled. "You're a scholar, Maya. You love learning, understanding, going deeper into ideas. But you're also a fighter. You saw something wrong at that restaurant, and you spoke up even though it cost you everything. So what do? You ask yourself which choice lets you be both, the scholar and the fighter, the learner and the doer." Josephine released her hands. "And then you make the choice that scares you just a little bit more." Maya thought about Chen Innovation, about the office on the 42nd floor, about the opportunity to shape international business communications in real time. Then she thought about Columbia, about the PhD she had dreamed of since college, about research that could change how people understood language and culture. "They both scare me," she admitted. "Good, that means they both matter." Maya's phone buzzed, A text from Chen Wei. Board meeting tomorrow. They want to discuss organizational restructuring in light of the Whitmore decision. Can you be there at 8 a.m.? She typed back. I'll be there. Then another text came through, from a number she didn't recognize. Miss Richardson, Richard Whitmore here. I believe we have unfinished business. Meet me tomorrow at noon at the Ivory Room. Come alone. I promise it will be worth your time. Maya stared at the message. What is it? Josephine asked. Whitmore wants to meet me, tomorrow, at the same restaurant where this all started. Are you going? Maya thought about it. The threat Jason had delivered. The video apology that had seemed so rehearsed. The patient strategic mind that had built a $4 billion empire. Yes, she said, I'm going. Why? Because I need to know what he really wants, and because... She paused because the Maya Richardson who was afraid of powerful men doesn't exist anymore. He helped kill her. It's only fair that I show him what took her place. Josephine smiled, a proud, fierce smile. That's my girl. The board meeting started at exactly 8 o'clock. Chen Wei sat at the head of a long table surrounded by 8 directors who represented hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. Their faces ranged from skeptical to openly hostile. Maya sat against the wall, observer status, only watching the dynamics unfold. The partnership with Whitmore Industries represented a $300 million opportunity. One director said, his voice tight with frustration. You terminated it based on the advice of a woman you've known for 1 week, a woman with no corporate experience, no track record, and a very suspicious origin story. Her origin story is irrelevant, Chen replied calmly. Her analysis of the contract was accurate. We would have been defrauded. That's your interpretation. Our legal team saw nothing wrong. Our legal team wasn't looking. The director leaned forward. Mr. Chen, I've supported you for 15 years. I've watched you build this company from nothing into a global powerhouse. But this decision feels impulsive, emotional, unlike you. Perhaps, or perhaps I've simply remembered who I was before success made me cautious. Chen's voice hardened. I started this company on a principle that business could be conducted with integrity. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that principle. Miss Richardson reminded me of it. Miss Richardson is a waitress. Miss Richardson has a master's degree in linguistics and speaks 5 languages fluently. She identified fraud that our entire legal department missed. If that's what waitresses can do, perhaps we should hire more of them. A few directors laughed reluctantly. The tension eased slightly. What's done is done, another director said, a silver-haired woman named Margaret, who had been quiet until now. The partnership is terminated. The question is what now? How do we recover the ground we've lost? Chen turned to Maya. Miss Richardson, would you share your thoughts? Every eye in the room focused on her. Maya stood slowly aware of the weight of the moment. The Whitmore distribution network was valuable, she said, but it wasn't unique. There are other companies with similar infrastructure. Companies that might be interested in partnership with Chen Innovation, especially after the publicity of the past few days. What publicity? Comment? The hostile director demanded. We look like we can't close a deal. We look like a company that won't be taken advantage of. That's a different message. Maya took a breath. In Chinese business culture, there's a concept called xinyu, reputation for trustworthiness. It's more valuable than any single contract because it determines who will do business with you in the future. She paused. By walking away from a fraudulent deal, Chen Innovation has demonstrated xinyu to every potential partner watching. We've shown that we value integrity over short-term profit. In the long run, that will attract better partnerships than anything we lost. Margaret nodded slowly. She has a point. The Asian markets in particular will respond well to this narrative. It's a gamble, the hostile director said. All business is gambling, Chen replied. The question is whether you're gambling on math or principles. I choose principles. He looked around the table. I'm not asking for your approval, ladies and gentlemen. The decision has been made. I'm asking for your commitment to making it work. Silence. Then Margaret spoke. You have mine. One by one, the other directors nodded their agreement. Even the hostile one, though his expression suggested he was reserving judgment. Good ditim, Chen said. Then let's discuss next steps. The meeting lasted another hour. Maya contributed when asked, but mostly observed, learning the rhythms and relationships that governed Chen Innovation's leadership. By the time it ended, she had a much clearer picture of what she had stepped into and what it would take to survive. At 11:30, Maya left the Chen Innovation building and took a taxi to the Ivory Room. The restaurant looked different in daylight, less magical. Just another expensive building on another expensive street, serving food to people with more money than they could spend. She walked through the front door for the first time in her life. The hostess looked up with a professional smile that faltered slightly when she recognized Maya. "Miss Richardson, we weren't expecting that as I didn't realize you were coming." "I have a meeting with Richard Whitmore." The hostess's eyes widened. "Of course, right this way." She led Maya through the main dining room, the same room where Maya had served countless dinners, where she had been mocked and humiliated, where she had changed her life with a few words in Mandarin. Whitmore was waiting at a private table in the back. He stood as Maya approached. "Miss Richardson, thank you for coming." "Mr. Whitmore." They sat across from each other. A waiter appeared, young, nervous, clearly aware of who both of them were, and took their drink orders. Maya asked for water. Whitmore ordered scotch. When the waiter left, Whitmore leaned back in his chair and studied her. "You've had quite a week." "So have you." "Fair point." He sipped his scotch. "I assume you're wondering why I asked you here." The thought crossed my mind. "I'll be direct. I want to offer you a job." Maya stared at him. Of all the things she had expected, this was not on the list. "A job?" she repeated. "Senior Vice President of International Communications. Double whatever Chen is paying you. Stock options, corner office, complete autonomy." He smiled. "I know talent when I see it, Miss Richardson, even when that talent has been used against me." "You threaten to destroy my career." "I threaten a lot of things. It's how business works." Whitmore set down his glass. "Look, I won't pretend I'm not angry about what happened. I am. You cost me a partnership worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but I'm also a pragmatist. You have skills my company needs. Skills I've been searching for and failing to find for years. And you think I would work for you after everything. I think you're smart enough to recognize an opportunity when you see one." Whitmore leaned forward. "Chen Innovation is a good company, but they're cautious, conservative. They'll give you a nice office and a modest salary and let you translate documents for the rest of your career. With me, you'd be building something, shaping international expansion at the highest levels." Maya thought about the offer. The money? The power? The chance to prove herself in the arena that mattered most. Then she thought about the way Whitmore had looked at her that night at the restaurant. The contempt in his voice when he mocked her accent, the casual cruelty of a man who saw everyone beneath him as tools to be used. "No," she said. Whitmore's expression didn't change. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." "May I ask why?" Maya looked him directly in the eyes. "Because you still don't see me, Mr. Whitmore. You see my skills, you see my potential usefulness to your company, but you don't see me." She stood. "Until you do, you'll never understand why I would walk away from everything you're offering." She turned and walked toward the door. "Miss Richardson." She paused but didn't turn around. "You're making a mistake," Whitmore said quietly. "I'm offering you the world." Maya looked back over her shoulder. "No, Mr. Whitmore. You're offering me a bigger cage." She smiled. "I've been in cages my whole life. I just got out. I'm not going back in." She walked through the restaurant and out the front door. The sunlight hit her face. The city noise surrounded her. And Maya Richardson felt for the first time in her life completely and absolutely free. 6 months passed faster than Maya could have imagined. She stood at the window of her office on the 42nd floor, watching the city transform from autumn gold to winter white. The view had become familiar now. The buildings she could name, the streets she had walked, the skyline that no longer felt like it belonged to someone else. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Zhang. "Board meeting in 10. Chen wants you there." Maya grabbed her tablet and headed for the elevator. The Chen Innovation boardroom had become as familiar as her grandmother's kitchen. 6 months of meetings, negotiations, and strategic planning had taught her every face around the table, every alliance and rivalry, every unspoken rule that governed this world she had stumbled into. Chen Wei stood at the head of the table, a rare smile on his face. "Good morning, everyone. I have an announcement." The directors leaned forward. Even Margaret, who rarely showed emotion, looked curious. "As you know, our North American expansion has exceeded projections by 47% this quarter. Our new partnership with Tanaka Industries in Japan has opened markets we couldn't have accessed through Whitmore. And our reputation for integrity has attracted 3 additional Fortune 500 companies seeking collaboration." He paused. "None of this would have been possible without the work of our international communications team, and none of it would have been possible without the woman who built that team from nothing." Chen turned to Maya. 6 months ago, I hired a waitress who spoke perfect Mandarin and had the courage to tell a billionaire he was wrong. Today, I'm proud to announce that the board has unanimously approved her promotion to Vice President of Global Communications. The room erupted in applause. Maya felt her face flush. She hadn't expected this, hadn't even known it was being discussed. Mr. Chen, I don't know what to say. You could say yes, Chen's eyes twinkled, unless you'd prefer to remain a director. I accept. Of course I accept. Excellent. Now, let's discuss the Tokyo Initiative. The meeting continued for another 2 hours, but Maya barely heard a word. Vice President. 6 months ago, she had been serving dinner to people who wouldn't look her in the eye. Now she was helping lead a global technology company. Her grandmother was going to lose her mind. After the meeting, Chen asked her to stay behind. You've earned this, he said when the room had emptied. I want you to know that. It wasn't sentiment or gratitude. The board reviewed your performance metrics. You've exceeded every benchmark we set. Thank you, Mr. Chen. There's something else. He sat down and gestured for her to do the same. I received a call yesterday from Richard Whitmore. Maya's stomach tightened. What did he want? To tell me he's retiring, effective immediately. Chen's expression was unreadable. Apparently, the Whitmore Industries board lost confidence in his leadership after the failed Chen Innovation Partnership. They've been pushing him out for months. I didn't know. Neither did I, but that's not the interesting part. Chen leaned forward. Before he resigned, Whitmore made one final request to his board. He asked them to issue a formal apology to you, personally, in writing, for his behavior at the restaurant that night. Maya stared at him. Why would he do that? I asked the same question. He said. Chen paused, choosing his words carefully. He said that watching you walk out of the ivory room was the first time in 30 years that someone had looked at him with genuine pity instead of fear. He said it changed something in him. Maya didn't know how to respond. The apology letter will arrive tomorrow, Chen continued. What you do with it is your decision. I just thought you should hear it from me first. Thank you for telling me. Chen nodded. Now go home. Celebrate with your grandmother. You've earned that too. The apartment smelled like celebration when Maya walked through the door. Grandma Josephine had outdone herself. Fried chicken collard greens, cornbread sweet potato pie. The kitchen table was set with the good china that only came out for special occasions. I heard, Josephine said before Maya could speak. Mr. Chen called me this morning. Wanted to make sure I knew before the announcement. Gran, you weren't supposed to... Hush, sit down and eat. Josephine wheeled herself to the table, her eyes bright with tears she was trying not to shed. My granddaughter, vice president of a global company, Lord have mercy. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. The food was perfect as always. There's something else, Maya said finally. Whitmore is retiring, and he's sending me an apology letter. Josephine's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Say that again. Maya explained everything Chen had told her. The board pressure, the resignation, the unexpected request for a formal apology. Josephine was quiet for a long moment. What do you think it means? Maya asked. I think it means you changed him. Josephine set down her fork. Not completely. Men like that don't change completely, but you planted a seed. When you walked away from his money and his power and told him he still didn't see you, that planted something. I don't know if I can forgive him, Gran. Forgiveness isn't about him, baby. It's about you. Josephine reached across and took Maya's hand. Carrying anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You don't have to forget what he did, but holding on to it will only hurt you. Maya thought about the night at the restaurant, the humiliation, the rage, the moment she had decided to stop being invisible. He called me a fried chicken server, she said quietly, and now you're a vice president who's eating fried chicken because she earned it. Josephine smiled. Seems to me like you won. Maya laughed. Actually laughed for the first time in what felt like weeks. I love you, Gran. I love you too, baby. Now finish your dinner. That pie isn't going to eat itself. The apology letter arrived the next morning. Maya held the envelope in her hands for a long time before opening it. Expensive paper. The Whitmore Industries logo embossed in the corner. Her name written in careful handwriting on the front. She took a breath and opened it. Dear Miss Richardson, I am writing to offer my sincere and unconditional apology for my behavior at the Crystal Room 6 months ago. My words were racist, demeaning, and inexcusable. I mocked your accent, questioned your intelligence, and treated you as less than human because of your uniform and the color of your skin. I have spent my entire career believing that business success justified any behavior. I was wrong. What I did that night wasn't aggressive negotiation, it was cruelty. And the fact that I didn't recognize it until you walked out of the ivory room shows how blind I had become. You asked me if I could see you. I couldn't then. I'm not sure I fully can now. But I'm trying. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm simply acknowledging that you were right about me and I was wrong about you. You are not a waitress who got lucky. You are a brilliant woman who refused to be invisible. I should have seen that from the beginning. With genuine respect, Richard Whitmore. Maya read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and put it in her desk drawer. She didn't know yet what she would do with it. Whether she would respond. Whether she would ever be able to forgive the man who had humiliated her in front of a room full of strangers. But for now, it was enough that he had asked. The months continued to pass. Spring arrived, then summer, then autumn again. Maya built her team from 3 people to 15. She traveled to Beijing 4 times, to Tokyo, twice to Seoul and Singapore and London. She learned to navigate corporate politics and international diplomacy and the 1,000 small challenges of leading people who were counting on her. And through it all, she never forgot where she came from. Every month she returned to the Crystal Room, not to eat but to visit, to sit in the kitchen with Miguel and the other servers who had been her colleagues, to remind herself that the people in uniform were just as valuable as the people they served. One evening, a year after everything had changed, Maya walked into the restaurant and found a young woman crying in the break room. "Hey," Maya said softly, "are you okay?" The woman looked up, startled. She was young, maybe 22, with dark skin and natural hair pulled back in a professional bun. "I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone was—" She stopped. "Wait, you're Maya Richardson." "I am." "I've read about you. Everyone here talks about you." The woman wiped her eyes. "You're like a legend around here, the waitress who became a vice president." Maya sat down across from her. "What's your name?" "Destiny Williams." "Why are you crying, Destiny?" The young woman's eyes filled with fresh tears. "A customer said something, called me stupid because I mispronounced a wine name, said I should stick to serving grape juice at church picnics." Maya felt a cold anger rise in her chest, the same anger that had burned in her that night a year ago. "Let me tell you something, Destiny. I have a master's degree from Beijing Normal University. I speak 5 languages. I graduated with honors from Georgetown." She leaned forward. "And a year ago, a man looked at me in this very restaurant and told me to stick to serving fried chicken." Destiny's eyes widened. "The people who say those things, they're not insulting us. They're revealing themselves, their ignorance, their fear, their desperate need to feel superior to someone." Maya reached out and took Destiny's hand. "The question isn't what they see when they look at you. The question is what you see when you look at yourself." "I don't know anymore," Destiny admitted. "I used to think I knew, but then I started working here and—" "What did you want to be before this job?" "A lawyer, civil rights law. I wanted to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves." Destiny's voice cracked. "But I couldn't afford law school and my family needed help, so I started waitressing and just never stopped." Maya's heart ached with recognition. The same story, different details, same trap. "Are you still interested in law school?" "Yes, but the applications, the tests, the money, I don't see how I could—" "What if I told you there was a way?" Destiny looked at her with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "What do you mean?" "Chen Innovation has a scholarship program for employees and their families. Full tuition, books, living expenses." Maya squeezed her hand. "I started it 6 months ago. You'd be a perfect candidate." "But I don't work for Chen Innovation." "You could." Maya smiled. "We're always looking for talented people who know how to work hard and communicate well. Skills you develop waiting tables, by the way." She pulled out a business card. "Call me tomorrow. We'll figure out the details." Destiny stared at the card like it was made of gold. "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." "Because a year ago, I was exactly where you are. Invisible, hopeless, trapped by circumstances I couldn't control." Maya stood. "Someone saw me when I couldn't see myself. Now it's my turn to do the same for someone else." She walked out of the break room, leaving Destiny holding the business card like a lifeline. 2 weeks later, Destiny Williams started at Chen Innovation as a junior communications associate. 3 months after that, she applied to Columbia Law School with a scholarship recommendation from Maya Richardson. She was accepted. The Leadership Summit came in November. Chen Innovation's annual gathering of executives, partners, and key stakeholders from around the world. 300 people in a Manhattan hotel ballroom representing billions of dollars in business relationships. Maya had been asked to deliver the closing keynote. She stood backstage reviewing her notes one final time. The speech was supposed to be about cross-cultural communication strategies, about the lessons Chen Innovation had learned in its global expansion, about best practices and case studies and data-driven insights. But as she waited for her introduction, Maya realized she didn't want to give that speech. She wanted to tell the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Vice President of Global Communications, Maya Richardson. Maya walked onto the stage. 300 faces looked up at her. Some curious, some skeptical, a few openly hostile. She had seen those expressions before. In the break room at the Crystal Room. In Victoria Chen's conference room. In Richard Whitmore's eyes when she refused his offer. They didn't scare her anymore. Good evening, everyone. I'm supposed to talk to you about communication strategies tonight, about frameworks and methodologies and all the buzzwords we use to make simple things sound complicated. She paused. Instead, I want to tell you a story. The room went quiet. A little over a year ago, I was a waitress at a 5-star restaurant here in Manhattan. I had a master's degree that I kept hidden in my locker. I spoke 5 languages that I never used at work, and every night I served dinner to people who looked right through me like I wasn't there. She saw some executives shift uncomfortably. Good. One night, a man sat down at my table and mocked my accent. He called me stupid. He suggested I belonged in a fried chicken restaurant instead of a place that served fine wine. He said some people were just better suited to certain roles. Maya let the words hang in the air. What he didn't know was that I understood everything. Not just his English, but the Mandarin his guests were speaking. Not just the words on his contract, but the fraud hidden inside them. She looked around the room. I had a choice that night. I could stay invisible, keep my head down, protect my job and my paycheck and my grandmother's medical insurance. That would have been the safe choice, the practical choice. She straightened her shoulders. I chose to speak. The room was absolutely silent. Speaking up cost me my job. It made me a target for one of the most powerful men in American business. It turned my entire life upside down. Maya paused. It was the best decision I ever made. She stepped out from behind the podium. I'm not here tonight to teach you communication strategies. I'm here to ask you a question. She looked around the room, meeting eyes wherever she could. How many people in your organizations are invisible right now? How many brilliant minds are staying silent because they're afraid of what speaking up might cost them? How many Maya Richardsons are serving your coffee and cleaning your offices and answering your phones, waiting for someone to see them? She let the question sink in. The most valuable asset in any company isn't technology or capital or market position. It's the people who show up every day and give you their best work even when you don't notice, even when you don't ask their names, even when you look right through them. Maya thought of Destiny Williams, of Miguel at the Crystal Room, of her grandmother who had spent her life caring for others but without recognition. I'm asking you to see them, not because it's good business strategy, though it is, not because it's the right thing to do, though it is, but because one day one of those invisible people is going to speak up, and when they do, everything will change. She returned to the podium. Talent speaks all languages. Wise leaders listen. She smiled. Thank you. The applause started slowly, then built to something thunderous. Maya stood at the podium, letting it wash over her, remembering all the nights she had dreamed of moments like this. But the moment she would remember most came afterward. A young Asian woman approached her after the speech. She was dressed in the uniform of the hotel staff, clearly there to work the event rather than attend it. Miss Richardson. Yes. I just wanted to say. The woman's voice cracked. I have a degree in computer science from Vietnam. I've been cleaning rooms at this hotel for 3 years because no one will hire me for tech jobs. They say my English isn't good enough. They say I don't have American experience. Maya felt her heart clench. What's your name? Lin. Lin Nguyen. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. Call me Monday Lin. Chen Innovation is always looking for talented engineers. Lin stared at the card. But you don't know if I'm any good. I know you have a degree you fought to earn. I know you're willing to clean rooms to survive while you wait for your chance. And I know that the people who doubt you are probably wrong. Maya smiled. That's enough for me. Lin's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Thank you so much. She hurried away before Maya could respond. Chen Wei appeared at Maya's elbow. That was not the speech we discussed. Maya tensed. I know. I'm sorry I should have. It was better. Chen's eyes were bright. Much better. My phone has been buzzing for the last 30 minutes. Every partner, every investor, every board member wants to talk about how to find the Maya Richardsons in their own organizations. Is that a good thing? It's a revolutionary thing. He shook her hand. Well done, Maya. Well done. December arrived with snow and celebration. Maya's second Christmas as vice president. Her grandmother's health had improved dramatically with access to better care. They had moved from the cramped Brooklyn apartment to a spacious townhouse with accessibility features and room for a live-in nurse. But some traditions remained unchanged. On Christmas Eve, Maya sat in her grandmother's kitchen, larger now, but still filled with the same smells and sounds, while Josephine directed the preparation of their holiday meal. The turkey needs another hour, Josephine announced from her wheelchair, and don't you dare overcook those greens. Yes, Gran, Maya smiled as she stirred the pot. Some things never changed. Her grandmother would always be the general of her kitchen wheelchair, or not. I have something for you, Josephine said. An early present. Gran, we said we weren't doing gifts until tomorrow. This can't wait. Josephine wheeled herself to a drawer and pulled out an envelope. Open it. Maya dried her hands and took the envelope. Inside was a faded photograph and an old letter. The photograph showed a young black woman in a medical school graduation gown holding a diploma and beaming at the camera. That's your mother? Josephine said quietly. The day she graduated from medical school, first in her class. Maya's throat tightened. I've never seen this picture. There's a reason. Look at the letter. Maya unfolded the paper. It was dated 35 years ago, addressed to her grandmother. Dear Mrs. Wilson, your daughter's application to our medical school has been received. We regret to inform you that despite her academic qualifications, we are unable to offer her admission at this time. Our incoming class has limited space for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, and we believe she would be better served by pursuing opportunities more suited to her circumstances. We wish her well in her future endeavors. Maya looked up. They rejected her. They rejected her twice. Said she didn't belong. Said she should know her place. Josephine's eyes were fierce. Your mother kept that letter. She looked at it every day while she reapplied. She used their doubt as fuel. And when she graduated first in her class 4 years later, she sent them a copy of her diploma. Why are you showing me this now? Because I want you to understand something. Josephine took Maya's hands. What you've accomplished isn't luck. It isn't coincidence. It's legacy. Your mother fought to be seen. You fought to be seen. And now you're helping other people fight the same battle. She gestured at the photograph. Your mother never got to meet you, but I know in my bones that she's watching, and she's prouder than you can possibly imagine. Maya felt the tears streaming down her face. I miss her, Gran. I know, baby. I miss her too. Josephine pulled her close. But she's not gone. She's in your eyes, in your courage, in every time you speak up, when you could stay silent. She lives in you, Maya. She always will. They held each other in the kitchen, two women who had survived so much, finally able to see how far they had come. Now dry your eyes, Josephine said finally. That turkey isn't going to baste itself. Maya laughed through her tears. Yes, Gran. And Maya. Yes. I'm proud of you too, more than words can say. The new year brought new challenges and new opportunities. Maya expanded her scholarship program to 3 universities. She created a mentorship initiative pairing Chen innovation executives with young professionals from underrepresented backgrounds. She traveled the world speaking at conferences, meeting with leaders, building bridges across languages and cultures and continents. But she never forgot the lesson that had started everything. On the 1-year anniversary of her promotion, Maya returned to the Crystal Room, not to the kitchen this time, but to the main dining room. She had reserved a table, the same table where she had served Richard Whitmore a lifetime ago. She sat alone, waiting. At exactly 7 o'clock, a young server approached her table. Good evening, ma'am. My name is James, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Maya looked up at him. Young, black, nervous, the same age she had been when she started working here. Hi, James. Tell me something. What do you want to do with your life? The question clearly caught him off guard. Excuse me? What's your dream, your goal, the thing you think about late at night when you can't sleep? James hesitated. I want to be a journalist, investigative reporting, the kind that holds powerful people accountable. That's a great dream. Maya smiled. Let me tell you a story about a waitress who had a dream too. She talked to James for an hour, about her journey, about the obstacles she had faced, about the moment she had decided to stop being invisible. And at the end of the meal, she gave him her business card. Chen Innovation funds journalism scholarships too, she said. Call me Monday. James looked at the card, then at her, then back at the card. Why? He asked. Why would you do this for someone you just met? Maya thought about all the people who had helped her along the way. Chen Wei, who had seen her potential when no one else did. Her grandmother, who had never let her forget her worth. Even Richard Whitmore, in a strange way, his cruelty had been the spark that ignited everything. Because someone did it for me once, she said. And the only way to repay that kind of gift is to give it to someone else. She stood, left a generous tip, and walked out of the restaurant. The night air was cold and clear. The city sparkled around her, full of people with stories and dreams and struggles she would never know. But somewhere out there she knew was another Maya Richardson, another Destiny Williams, another Lynn Nguyen, another James, whoever he was, another brilliant mind waiting to be seen. Maya hailed a taxi and gave her grandmother's address. As the car pulled away, she looked back at the restaurant one last time. She remembered the terror of that first night, the humiliation, the moment she had decided to speak up even though it might cost her everything. And she thought about all the moments since then, the victories, the setbacks, the lessons learned and the bridges built. It had been a long road from that restaurant to this taxi, from that server's uniform to that vice president's office, from invisible to seen. But the journey wasn't over. It would never be over. Because every day, somewhere in the world, someone was being told they didn't belong. Someone was being mocked for their accent or their skin color or their uniform. Someone was being made to feel invisible. And Maya Richardson had made a promise. She would find them, she would see them, and she would help them find their voice. Because the most powerful words in any language aren't the ones that tear people down. They're the ones that lift people up. The taxi pulled up to her grandmother's townhouse. Maya paid the driver and walked up the steps to the front door. Inside, she could hear Josephine laughing at something on television. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the hallway. The walls were covered with photographs. Now Maya's graduation from Georgetown, her promotion announcement, her speaking at the leadership summit, and in the center of them all that faded photograph of her mother in her medical school graduation gown. Maya hung up her coat and walked into the living room. There you are, Josephine said. How was dinner? Good. Met a young man who wants to be a journalist. And let me guess, you offered him a scholarship. Maybe, Josephine laughed. You're going to run out of money if you keep doing that. I'll make more. Maya sat down beside her grandmother's wheelchair. Gran, do you remember what you told me the night before everything changed about being the nail that sticks up? I remember. You said sometimes it goes somewhere that needs nails. Maya took her grandmother's hand. I think I finally understand what you meant. Josephine smiled, her eyes bright with tears and pride. I know you do, baby. I've always known. They sat together in the warm living room, grandmother and granddaughter, two survivors who had refused to be invisible. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. And somewhere in that city, a young server named James was looking at a business card, wondering if he dared to dream. Maya had been invisible once. She had been mocked and dismissed and told to know her place. But she had spoken up anyway. And in doing so, she had discovered the most important truth of all. The moment you refuse to be invisible is the moment you become unstoppable. Not because you suddenly gain power, but because you finally claim the power you always had. Maya Richardson had claimed her power in a 5-star restaurant, standing beside a table full of billionaires speaking perfect Mandarin to expose a fraud. Now she spent her days helping others do the same, because that's what happened when invisible people found their voice. They didn't just change their own lives. They changed the world.